Hello folks, welcome to the June 13th, 2023 meeting of the Northfield Select Board. Call this meeting to order. First up on our agenda tonight, we have a topic involving the fire department, and this is due to some communication and some questions and concerns that the fire department had over what is going to be happening for the future of the department. So Heath and I took a meeting with the fire department a few days ago, and it was best determined to keep this item on the agenda so that we can meet with the fire department and discuss some topics going forward in regards to them. So this time I'd like to invite Mr. Rob Hunter up to the table to represent the department in this manner, because Michael Quinn could not be here tonight. So,
the members of the department are looking for some clarification on where the department's going to stand when Skip Donnell retires. We all know he went for an extension, and I guess it's in the state right now being processed. But we're looking to see what the future is for the Northfield Fire Department and the chief, and where you guys have plans.
Okay. So, like I said, Heath and I, we took the meeting with the fire department. We let the fire department know that we do not make up the majority of the select board. So what we would like to see in the process going forward for a search when that time comes might be different from what the majority of the board thinks of. So I'd like to open up the discussion at this time of what we will eventually do when it comes to having to replace and find a new fire chief. So it was my understanding that when we search for an appointed official in town, it is to be done through the hiring process at the discretion of the select board. With that being said, when it comes to big positions like this, we typically do a search, like a screening process, a search screening, and then having the final candidates come before the select board for final interviews and an appointment. That's how we've always done it. But what I would like to see, a search committee designed with a number of people that involves the fire department, perhaps a couple residents, maybe another sitting member from another emergency service in the town, and maybe a board member or something like that. So when the time comes, I think it would be best if we just are kind of squared away in how we're going to do this and how we're going to design this search. But whatever we do, I want to just make sure that the fire department is involved, because they know what's best for their department. They've been doing this a long time, and given their reputation for not only incredible response time, but also for leadership and a command structure that seems to be pretty squared away from the time that I've been able to get to know the members of the fire department. So I just want to make sure that whether it's 5 members, 7 members, 9 members, however many, which will eventually be determined, that we have the fire department having a strong involvement in the search for their next leader of the department. And when Heath and I met with the fire department, we both, speaking for Heath, feel very strongly of the fire department's interest and passion for making sure that the next generation getting involved has a proper command and leadership structure in place. And Skip is, he's, how do I say it? He's not a young man anymore. So the fact that he has to have this special legislation put through says that we have to start thinking about those plans. So the fire department reached out to Heath and I to just make sure that we're ready and in place for when that happens. And I know some of us may not even be on the board at that time, so we just want to have this discussion so that we're keeping an open line of communication with the fire department in regards to this. So I don't know if anybody had anything else to say on it. Heath?
So one of my biggest concerns is maintaining the integrity of the department throughout however that process moves forward, because comparing Northfield Fire Department to a bunch of different towns around, we have something here that other towns don't have, and if other towns had it, they lost it a long time ago. And I want to make sure that we are able to help them continue on into the future and maintain the success that they've had. And talking to these guys the other day, I mean, I know most of these guys for years and stuff, but talking to these guys the other day and seeing the care and concern and passion that they have for what the future of their department's going to be is, like I told them, for a manager, director, anybody who's in charge of something, it's a dream to see people in a department who care that much about what they do and how their department operates and what the future of it looks like. Everybody in the room was pretty much unanimous that they don't think it's necessary that the department would seek a full-time fire chief in the future, and I tend to agree. I mean, I just don't see this town needing a full-time fire chief. That is my own opinion, but you know, the department seems to think that they can continue forward into the future with the staff that they have and whatever requirements might need to be sought after for a replacement. I think we should develop some sort of a fire department succession planning committee in advance of Skip's retirement, whenever that might be, so that we can figure out what that process will look like. We can make sure that if there is a candidate moving forward, that they have the right certifications, requirements, whatever would be needed by that person. But you know, perfect example, we don't always have to hire out and create a big committee for every position. We just did it with the town clerk. So you know, let's say if the time came and the committee felt that way, that there's somebody within the department that could easily move into the position and they can recommend it to the select board, I'd say that's a great way to move forward with the process. So wanted to support those guys in that, because they were definitely concerned about what the future of the department looks like when we talk to them, and I think that's probably the best way we can try to approach that and get ahead of it for whatever that's going to happen. And to be honest, we don't know if Skip's extension is going to even be approved by the legislature.
We have no control over that
We
at
don't.
this point.
So this could come sooner than later. So that's kind of why I want to bring this up now. But coming on the heels of the conversation and everything that we had discussed the other night, I just think that it would be great to at least get the ball rolling on this entire process and see how it shakes out and how we can set the town up for success in the future.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What does get the ball rolling look like?
Creating a committee.
Okay. The succession committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can,
All right. Anything?
You were going to say something?
I'm just curious, so where is Skip? Where's the chief in this discussion? Because he's not here.
He felt like
So
he
normally the head of a department would be involved in their succession planning. And that's something that we talked about, that Andre and I talked about when I was chair with Skip, at least twice over the last 6 months.
well, Skip, but 6 months ago, you guys sent out a job description for different heads of the departments, and Skip gave you what his thought was on to become the Northfield Fire Chief, the next Northfield Fire Chief.
No, the job descriptions are, to my knowledge, are a separate effort. That's to make sure we have job descriptions.
Correct.
And they're all classified properly. I did not talk to Skip directly about his job description. I'm just curious why he wouldn't be here tonight with the team. Was Skip at the meeting that you were at? Okay.
He was at the meeting, yeah.
So he wasn't able to be here?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. So that's one question. And then, so what exactly is so we've known 5 years ago that we needed a succession plan. I'm just going to point that out. So we're actually behind schedule.
More of a reason to get started.
Yeah, so what's the concern that the select board's going to pick the wrong person? Or I just want to get at the basis of the concerns.
They say it's one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm asking the fire department.
So for years we've
What's
had.
the concern about that we're not going to listen or we're not going to involve the fire department? What specifically is the concern?
That's the concern. Yeah, we want to be. We'd like to be involved in the process. That's right. We're coming ahead and make sure that we're
Okay.
involved in the process, the hiring process.
Okay, and you were concerned that the select board would not involve the department?
We don't know the future. That's why we're coming to you and trying to figure out a plan on this.
Okay. And in terms of like the existing department and your training, who actually is anyone pursuing certification? Was that discussed at all? Aren't there certifications and different training that you have to have when you
Yes. Yeah.
when you get into different fire positions?
Yeah, we have a couple members that are looking to do the training, and get their credentials, and move ahead in that.
But they're not currently in training, so nobody's like already certified.
So to become a chief in the state of Massachusetts, there's different, there's like a 100-point system.
Yeah.
You get different points for how long you've been on the department, how long you've been an officer, the different trainings you have.
Yeah.
So we have guys that have that training.
Okay.
So we're coming to you because we want to be involved in the whole process. We want to see what you guys want from us so we can work with you guys.
Yeah, and I'm asking, so I got the concern, I'm just asking from a training perspective, because the training part is new to me. I just started Googling, mass.gov
Yep.
stuff. So I'm just curious, within your department now, so part of the succession planning would be making sure that if people do want to move up, that the training is already in progress or near completion would be my assumption.
Okay.
Just FYI. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm asking about like what kind of training is needed. That would be one thing I think the select board needs to get up to speed on.
Okay.
Just like we did like with police reform and all of that. And when the police chief retired, we had to spend a lot of time on understanding, and then we've gone through various policies and procedures with the new chief. So to me, there's a lot of background that I think we need to understand. I know you guys probably understand more, but certainly you guys understand more. But for us, in terms of understanding the department and understanding, what regulations you fall under, what the training is,
Yeah.
all of that good stuff, I don't have that at my fingertips right now, the way that I do with the police stuff that we've been through
Okay.
over the last year and a half. So personally, I'm saying to you guys, I would need to know more about what's involved
Okay.
in training, what do mass laws require,
Okay.
and then my understanding from when you're at the highest level, there's a number of not only chief certification, but other kinds of certification like inspections and
Yep.
and all of that stuff. So it would be helpful to know who already has what in the department, because to me that would inform succession planning. To me that would be part of the process.
Okay.
I think it goes two ways. You're asking us what we think, and I'm
Right.
asking you guys, well, here's what I think, but here's what I think I need as a select board member,
Okay.
right?
So,
To do my homework.
absolutely.
Right.
Go ahead, Sarah.
But I think that getting up to speed on what the state regs are and what the trainings are, that's not anything separate than what we would be doing.
No.
Like as the select board, that's what we're
Yeah.
going to be doing anyway. So the special request is just to make sure that the gentlemen on in the fire station have a strong presence in the decision. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And I think if I could speak.
Do please.
Yeah, and I think that what you guys want is you want to know if there's, from the committee or whatever, you want to know if there's something we need.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
if you have enough time,
Correct.
that you have time, that if somebody says, oh, gee, I don't have this, but I'm interested, it gives them time to take it or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought you were
Yeah.
asking for, is a,
Because when you guys there were the night talking, and Skip gave the whole job description, his thing was he'd like to see whoever takes over the chief in a 2-year period, they could get all their credentials and move forward.
So they can come into the chief's position without having all the credentials?
No, they'd have some of them, but if they needed to wrap up, the loose ends, that
Okay.
they could work in and make sure they're, in the 2-year period that they're
Yep.
done.
So when we did the hiring for the police chief, how big was that screening and search committee? Does anybody remember? 7?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to put that number
The
down.
process you did is you had a public meeting first. I think Skip actually moderated to ask people what they wanted in a police chief. And then we culled that into what we decided you wanted to put forward as the advertisement, to put out there for the search. And then you went through you went through a company, and the company did the initial screening with more than 24 applicants and did some initial background work. I'm not saying to do this for fire. I'm just saying
Right.
this. I just want to reacquaint people who maybe didn't know what we actually did for police. And then they gave the first call of saying, okay, these are probably your best candidates. Other ones didn't pass certain minimal requirements that you set. Like you might have said, we need this, we need this, we need this, and they're going to call out that group. And then you had so the first screening interview committee had, well, I'm going to guess it had closer to 9 members on it. You picked, like, I want a member of somebody who lives in town, who's been a fire, police, and I want members from town who represent this, and you picked certain groups and you filled those seats, and then 2 select board or a select board member, and so that was the screening committee, and then they put forward the finalists.
The select board was the hiring committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
The select board became the hiring committee in that particular case with the finalists.
Have you ever seen something where a member of the fire department or somebody else outside of the select board was on the hiring committee?
Well, a member of the department, but not the chief.
Right.
You don't hire your own replacement.
Right.
And you don't participate in that process, generally speaking, at least from my experience, certainly in town government experience. Maybe it's different with police and fire, but the current chief actually asked to be, well, at that time, to be on the police screening, and I strongly discouraged, and the select board agreed that it's not really appropriate for the current chief to be on the committee that moves forward with their successor. That doesn't mean a member of the department isn't,
Correct, yeah.
but generally the chief is not.
Do we have a job description for the fire chief? Sorry, Heath.
We do not have an approved job description for the fire chief.
Okay, so I think that's
Step
that
one.
would be a good step one. We need a job description. Job description of all the things that are required for a fire chief in the state of Massachusetts. Now, criminal justice is my background, it's my education, it's what I have studied immensely over the past 7 years. So that's in Heath's area too. So this is something I don't really know a lot about. So I'm going to be asking for the fire department's guidance and the town administrator as well, and probably other people who have a stronger background in what is required to lead and run and liability speaking, represent the fire department. So that's what we needed. Step one, Heath.
I think everything we're discussing here is exactly why we need to have this succession planning committee, is that we need to figure out what certifications we will be looking for at whatever time. What are the requirements? Because just kind of saying that, who's working on what requirements? Well, regardless of what they're working on, we need to figure out from the town side, what are we going to require of that chief? So we need to have that list, whatever it is, whatever current thing is there, and if anything's added to it in the next few years, because they like to add training to everybody in public safety on an annual basis. So what are the actual certification requirements of our potential chief, whether it's part-time or anything? And then other things that we would want to look at. So we need the job description obviously first, but then what are we going to look at? What are the requirements of replacing that person? The certifications, the years of service, will there be any educational requirements? And then obviously what any good organization should do is post it internally first before it's offered up to the world. I mean, I know with the police chief search, we did go and post it out publicly, but that's for a full-time department with multiple full-time employees, much different dynamic of an operations department. This is a call to fire department with a lot less staffing requirements of it, and I think it's just a completely different way. So, kind of like we did with the town clerk thing, just it's not an all or nothing. We don't really look at every single job posting the way that we did it and then apply it to every other one. I think that was kind of the point that we made with Dan Campbell, having that discussion with him the other night. So, which this was exactly the reason why I wanted to say I wasn't against who we were hiring that night. It's just I'm saying, we seem to always say, we want to see every person that we hire, we want them right in front of us. We want to see things kind of like in a uniform way, but if we're going to flex and have our hiring practices go in certain ways, that we make sure we apply it across the board whenever the time comes. So
Consistency and government.
Well, for clarification, what we talked about, what we settled on is in the personnel policy, we have always had 2 different paths. one is promotion within and the other one is not.
Mhm.
So we're not inconsistent. I just want to point that out. We're not inconsistent. The select board has the choice of which path that they choose. I think it's a little premature to be talking about step one, we need the job description. 2, it sounds like we need a committee. So I think it's great that you're coming before the select board to talk about it. I think we should have probably had this a long time ago.
What's premature?
To actually decide how it's posted. The
I'm not
group
deciding
needs.
how it's posted. I'm
Yeah.
saying these are the things that need to be discussed within the committee.
Oh, okay, great. Sound like you were advocating for it. Okay. The other problem, I don't know if, do you see this being addressed? I'm looking at Heath and Alex as well as Fire, is what we talked about with Skip and one of the challenges with going through the legislature. So the last time Skip's extension went through the legislature, and last year when the water district bill went through, it wasn't officially signed until the fall. So it went through the legislature during July, and then the bill was actually signed and in effect in September or October. And Skip's birthday is in August. So that's when his mandatory retirement takes effect. So there's also possibly a short-term gap in there as well. Did you guys all talk about that?
Yes, so there was a discussion of
Okay.
hiring an interim fire chief. Who that is, I don't really know. It's not my place to say it. But I do believe there should, similar to how we did with Northfield PD when Rob retired, to have an interim next up in line in the ranks to hold the fort down for a while until the proper, all this stuff can get done. So do you have somebody in place? I guess that's the question. If that happens, when the mandatory thing for Skip runs out,
Yeah.
for somebody to step up to the plate and lead the department temporarily?
How it goes in rank, it's usually the deputy chief, and that'd be David Quinn.
Okay.
That's how the seniority thing works. And then we go down the line to like Michael Quinn would be the captain. But that's how when Skip's on vacation, David's in charge of the department.
So, which raises the question about auxiliary. So, are you able to be a interim fire chief when you're over 65?
We'd have to ask that question. I personally can't answer it.
So,
I think we'd have to find that out.
I think we should get a committee up and running and dive into like the short-term stuff ASAP then.
So
I guess.
Is it our intention to put a committee together tonight, or should we create it and then try to see if we can get people who want to be on it, like we're doing with this economic committee?
Create it and get letters of interest.
Okay.
And finalize it at the next meeting?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're following the law here, because I know it just had for a discussion tonight, we didn't have like creating a committee.
No.
Discussion, so.
Maybe you want to talk about the criteria of people you want on the committee or whatever, and just establish the committee at your next meeting, because you're right, it isn't on there. But it would allow people maybe to
step forward.
right, and I wouldn't do it at your next meeting. That gives you a chance to, on your next meeting, discuss it, and then maybe the following meeting, you actually establish the committee.
Got it.
So 4 weeks.
I mean, you can establish it next week and say, okay, we've decided we're going to have, this many people.
Like
and
what our
but
composition
please
is.
put in
Yeah.
your thing for the following week, and then you could appoint.
So it would be appropriate to say that we are currently now accepting letters of interest.
Right, but do you want to say we're looking for, I'm making this up, one firefighter, one select board member, one, so that people could apply, or one person who's been a firefighter or has experience with it, what do you want the criteria to be of your committee, and what size are you thinking
Is that
already?
the discussion we
I
should have
think
next
it's
week?
premature to do
Yeah,
that.
so that's the discussion you want to have next.
Okay.
Not necessarily tonight, but that's the discussion you want next.
Okay.
I have one more, if I might.
Go ahead.
One thing, you asked for suggestions of ways to prepare for participating.
Yep.
Based on the way that we selected the police chief, there was a community meeting, right? And people
Yep.
said, what do we want in a police chief? You guys can do that independently, right?
Correct,
If you're
yeah.
gonna have a foot in the door, you guys get together and say, what do I want in a fire chief, and hash it out among yourselves.
Yep.
In preparation for your participation. And then the other thing is we've mentioned is make sure to get your ducks in a row as far as this is my training, this is when it expires, this is when I need.
Yeah.
Got a spreadsheet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob, that would be good, and if, you know, it might be nice if, I don't know how much citizen interest, you know, that comes and goes.
Correct.
You know, if you invite citizens to your meeting to see what they want too,
Mhm.
might be a good idea. You could have 12 people or you could have 100,
Right.
you never know.
Or do you want to do that independent? Let them do one internal and then one external that's run by.
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
that's
it's
better.
two separate conversations.
Two
Yeah.
separate.
Because you're going to
You
have
guys
different,
do
you're going to have
one.
different things you want to say than probably someone from the
Yeah.
public might.
Okay.
I don't know.
So you're asking like us do one, and then you guys do one? Is that what your suggestion? Or
I think the idea was somebody was saying.
I was
do
saying you guys get together and
Correct,
it doesn't
yeah.
have to be formal,
Yeah,
you know,
no.
just meet and hash it out.
correct.
And then I think that there could be a place for a citizen one in addition. But
Now,
that
when
you guys have separate criteria that you want in a chief versus what the citizens think.
when you guys did the police hiring, did you do a community?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, you did.
Skip
Okay.
on.
over at the high school, yeah.
Okay.
It was
In
pretty
the
big.
gymnasium.
may not be a bad idea just to set that precedent for these types of positions.
Right.
So,
It's a good way to educate people too.
Absolutely.
Right, because I think what Sarah's saying that I agree with is you guys have a certain level of expertise in acronyms and a language, right?
Mhm.
Based on your experience that the average citizen is not going to have. So
Correct.
if we sat in on it, it'd be interesting, but a lot of it would probably be like, you know, foreign language.
Yeah.
So I think she's absolutely right. You guys should articulate what you really want in a chief, and that will be useful. And then at the public setting, you know, I think there's an opportunity there for really educating people about what goes into fire work, what kinds of training is involved, what you guys have already been doing. I think everybody would be really interested in that. There was, you know, after the public safety complex discussion, lots of people were just really concerned and interested in all of the public safety workers and whether or not they were well taken care of. So I think people would be really interested in coming out and asking questions.
this is, like I've said before with the police chief, this is a monumental occurrence. That does not happen a whole lot. Skip has said many times, was it 1976?
76. Yeah.
Once in 50 years
Once in
almost.
50 years. So, if anything, education. This is the perfect prime time to make a big deal and promote and big deal out of it. It doesn't happen a whole lot.
It's momentous.
Momentous, absolutely. So
Once in
I'm-
a generation.
That's right.
And Skip is
Basically.
beloved too,
Yeah.
so it's a big change.
It is.
So just want to be mindful of the time here. We had a half-hour block for this. So just want to any further comments before we wrap up. I think we know what we have to do at this point. So Rob, any final words?
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us, and we'll move ahead with it.
Yeah.
Great.
If you have any more concerns, so you can always shoot Alex
Absolutely.
an email or something. And
Absolutely.
Thank you
Just
guys.
want to say thanks to the fire
Yeah.
department for inviting Heath and I that night so we could have this discussion and keeping this communication open. It's very important to do in this day and age. So thanks again. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do here. So thanks again, Rob.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
So, just one quick
Yes,
question.
yeah.
So, other select board members, can we like get a tour and get a sense of what you guys are doing
Absolutely.
sometime when you have a meeting?
Absolutely.
Because I've done a ride along with the police, and I've been in the ambulance. I haven't been on an official ride along. So I've seen the operation.
Yep.
So I would love to get more familiar with what you guys are
The
doing.
first Thursday of the month is
Okay.
our monthly meeting,
So we can stop by.
and then the second Thursday of the month is our training. So,
Okay.
and every Wednesday we call it a cleanup. We have there's 2 officers and there's 5 or 6 members. They go through all the equipment, all the trucks, So there's someone there on a Wednesday night. You're
Okay.
welcome to stop by and
Great.
hang
So
out.
when we see all the trucks and cars there, then we can just
Correct.
pull in and go. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
So next up on our agenda for 6:30, Recreation Summer Program Counselor Appointments.
It's gonna take us a minute to set up here. We need a couple chairs. If you guys wanna grab, put a chair at the end there. And
Oh, this is good.
You have their,
you guys wanna come up here? Yeah. I'll
We
get
want
all
to see
that.
the full
Like
recreation
the full,
staff.
like, everybody, and I need one more chair too. Oh, you got it. I'll sit on the end here if you guys wanna sit
Stacy,
in
do you
the
have the
middle.
job application?
I have the employment application for each one. Can I ask her to take one and pass it along?
we didn't discuss this till now, so that'll be the motion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Here's the other one, so take one and pass it along.
This is the motion. Do you want me to, can I just look at that? Thank you.
So.
Oh, great.
I have Matthew Singh and James Stalin, right? Am I saying it correctly? Who we went through 2 interviews. So we actually got a lot of applicants, a lot of really good applicants, a lot of teenagers. I like, it was really challenging to to sit through them all, and it actually made the rec department also go, if there's any other way we can find additional jobs for these teens. So we're looking into that for the future, because there's definitely, it seems to be a need, because there was so many applicants. So the Hannah and Gary were able to narrow down 6, which was hard enough. And then we had to narrow it down to 3, and then even that, trying to find these 2, you know, it was hard. They were all very well qualified too. And what, I mean, Northfield have such great teenagers, like just, well, these guys are actually 18, so they're not teenagers. Well, yeah, teenagers, sorry, 18. Sorry,
Young adults.
Adults is what I mean, they're adults. So, but just knowing that we had such a great pool to pick from for our summer program was great. So I don't know how you want to start, but
Yeah, so what I usually do is I'll just pick a candidate and have them just talk. So we'll start with Matthew. Matthew, okay. So you are here to seek employment as a summer counselor. That's getting the obvious out of the way. So tell us a little bit about yourself, young man.
Oh, I just graduated high school.
Oh, congrats.
Well done.
I'm a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol. I've had experience being a CIT in a different camp, which I was then offered an internship for after completing that program. I have experience with children through my siblings, and my family has fostered infants before, so I have some experience in that regard. I was one of the student representatives to the school committee at Pioneer, so once a month I would go
That's
to NES
right.
and talk to all the kids there, just get an idea of what they're learning, what they're thinking about, what's going on in their heads. Yeah, I'll be going to college in the fall for aerospace engineering as well.
Cool. So you, if I remember correctly, because I was at a school committee meeting, you and Cooper maybe, you visited the elementary school and you sat in on different elementary school classes and activities, and that they did a fantastic PowerPoint for the school committee. You guys were great presenters.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Matt, what are your long-term goals?
Ooh.
I'll get a master's in aerospace engineering is the most pressing one right now. I'd like to get
these are highly qualified.
on the more fun side, I'd like to get my pilot's license in my 30s if I can. I'd like to delve more into Spanish. I studied for 5 years at Pioneer, and I feel like I'd like to put a little bit more effort into it at this point.
Fluent, yeah.
Those are the big ones.
What are some important summer camp counselor qualities that should be had when supervising and directly monitoring youth?
Basic things, just kindness and understanding, but also the ability to get down on a child's level, understand why it is they're doing what they're doing, and to be able to work with them in a way that gets them to where you want them to be, but allows them to grow in the process. You have to be able to work with parents as well. You have to be good at planning activities, because you can't just jump into the day and expect to do whatever and keep them occupied for the entire day.
All right. Yes, Sarah.
So I was a DCC in Civil Air Patrol, and I'm curious, what's your rank?
I'm a cadet senior master sergeant as of right now.
And are you up to date on your cadet protection?
Yes, I had to take that when I turned 18.
Okay. That's what I need to think.
Don't look at me.
We'll move on to.
Move on.
He's more qualified than we are. Yeah. Okay.
James.
Hi.
And you also seek interest as a summer camp counselor in the
Yes.
town of Northfield. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm also just graduated from Pioneer with Matthew. I worked at Bernardston Rec for 2 years in 2021 and 2022. I have a lot of experience with kids. I also have 3 nieces at home, and I have 4 sisters. I'm going to UVM for political science. I want to become a lawyer in the future.
Oh, great.
We don't mess around.
A policy man, I like it. So, in regards to political science, what are your long-term goals in seeking that type of education?
I want to become a lawyer in the future. Even more in the future, I'd like to become a judge. Just anything with politics I'm really enthused by. So.
Cool.
What a good time to get involved in that field.
Just be careful. I also went to law school in LaGuardia and ended up. No, it's great. It's great.
Succession planning.
You can be a town administrator.
There's some great jobs in that field.
Exactly. There's no shortage of openings.
So you have direct experience in working with children then, as a counselor for Bernardston, you said?
Yeah.
Tell me just briefly about your experiences with that.
Well, I didn't have any experience planning, but I'm excited to do that. It was mostly planned by the head person, Jen Stennis. But I know that you have to establish relationship with the kids. I worked with like 50 kids, and I was able to know all of them. I mean, I remembered all of their names by the end, and they were always interchanging. I mean, some weeks there was 50 kids, some weeks there was 40, some weeks there was 30. So it was always interchanging, and I worked with like 3 or 4 other counselors to help the kids. So yeah.
Quickly, do you guys like dodgeball? And then lastly, Stacy, you have the confidence in these individuals to lead the...
Yes, absolutely.
Fabulous. Okay. Oh, you want to do that?
Sure.
I noticed both of you were you're going to be CPF certified, and you are. That's good.
Plus,
Gonna be around the kids.
our director is. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our assistant director.
Yeah. I know that.
Right.
That's
Okay.
always good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're covered.
I noticed it on your resumes, on your applications. Thank you.
Okay, I move that we appoint Matthew Singh and James, how do you pronounce your last name, James?
Stalins.
Stalins, to the positions of summer program counselor, grade 3, step 2, for $16.71 an hour to start June 26th through July 28th as temporary summer hires.
Second.
I'll second that.
All right, give it to Bernie.
Yeah.
Any discussion on that? Any discussion on that at all? No. All those in favor of these hires?
Aye.
Unanimous passing.
It's
Welcome to the town.
It's enthusiastic. It's an enthusiastic yes. And we really, really thank you. Yeah.
So we'll be typing up your appointment letters and getting those to you. It'll tell you what you need to do and paperwork you have to fill out and everything. It'll be coming shortly.
Thank you to your
That's
call.
great.
Thank you very
Good
much.
job, you guys.
Yeah,
I can't
we're
believe how many
excited.
applicants you had.
I know,
Wow.
it was a lot, so that's why we're
It's really encouraging.
think of other ideas. for
Yeah.
things. I've got something up my sleeve.
Good. We should noodle on that.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
All
Oh,
right.
that was great.
Moving on in our agenda, citizens' concerns. Anybody? Citizens' concerns. Yes, Joe. Come on up.
Just a question more than a concern. I have a letter.
Just 1 second, Joe. When it comes to citizens' concerns, we just have to be very careful when it comes to questions that are not directly on the agenda or related to agenda topics.
If you're on the agenda, yeah.
Okay, but if you have a concern, that's one thing you can concern as a resident towards the select board. But when it comes to a question, we have to be very careful on liability and how, if at all, we answer questions. But I would advise the board, until we get to the next agenda item on the public meetings, public comment policy, that we refrain from answering questions from citizens and to just listen to their concerns.
Okay.
Okay, the only question was, will I get the chance to speak at that point?
The public meetings,
Committee boards
posting-
and appointments.
Oh.
Which one, Joe? I'm sorry.
Committee board appointments. It's down, it's really down on the bottom. That's a simple question.
Oh, we don't even have anything. We don't even have anything
There is
posted
no
for that.
committee appointments today.
There's no committee or board appointments.
You're not you're not, okay, then I would like to offer a letter of support for the Economic Development Committee
Okay.
for whenever that happens, so I can.
Yeah, sure.
That's a different business topic.
That is a business topic, so we have that. That's
Oh,
the
you
first
do have
business
that.
topic. Yeah.
What is that identified in here? as?
Economic Development Committee.
First item of business.
Sure.
But I think he's asking if he can speak during it.
I don't, I'm looking for it. Oh, it's not in dark, okay. Do you want me to wait for that?
I was just thinking we can look at the letters as we.
Yeah, we can look at the letters as we get into it. Did you want to just did you have anything to say right now while we're in that agenda item of citizens'
I would
concerns?
just like to read the letter into the record.
Read the letter, yeah, please.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'll allow that.
take about 40 seconds.
Yep.
Now, maybe a minute. Dear Chair Meisner and fellow board members Cummings, Jack, Bordeaux, and Kearns, I'm writing this letter of support for Steve Soya's appointment to the yet-to-be-formed Economic Development Committee. I encourage board members' serious consideration for the many decades of dedication, hard work, and experience Steve and Joan Stoya have selflessly brought to this community as proprietors of the Centennial House, and their ongoing leadership in many organizations in town, including the Northfield Historic Commission, Kiwanis Club, and many other important projects and committees, including Northfield's 350 anniversary working groups. In my 36 years living in Northfield and running a business here, I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with so many wonderful citizens who have volunteered their time for this beautiful historic town over and over again. But I must say I've seen few people more steadfast and dedicated to the cultural and economic development of this town than the Stoyas. Joan and Steve have repeatedly been most gracious guests to so many wonderful activities in town, often taking place free of charge at the Centennial House. They have hosted dignitaries from a number of indigenous sovereign nations and fostered educational programs where storytellers and tribal elders felt comfortable enough with the Stoyas to share their stories and cultural traditions. Joan and Steve have organized and executed so many successful events that my one-page letter would have to be many pages, so I'll end my accolades to, and there's a typo there, to the Stoyas here. I'm encouraging this board not to let this kind of hard-earned experience, generosity, and endless energy slip away when this town could take advantage of such experience and leaderships by voting to appoint Steve Stoya as a member of the Economic Development Committee. With kindest regards, of course, I'm Joe Gravel.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Thank you for that letter.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. He's a good writer.
Okay, we'll get typical business out of the way at this time. With review and
I
approval.
have a citizen's concern. Me personally, as a citizen.
Oh.
Is that, you good?
Sure.
At the last meeting, the chair said that we shouldn't, as select board members, bring citizens' concerns of citizens to, shouldn't represent the citizenry in that way. And my concern is that if we're not here to represent the citizens, then what are we doing? I think that that's expressly part of our job. So that's my concern.
Okay. Noted. Review and approval of the warrants. June 14th, 2023 payroll warrant. Motion, please.
I move that we approve the payroll warrant of June 14th, 2023 of $81,571.78.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next one.
I move that we approve the vendor warrant from June 14th, 2023 of $278,895.74, which includes the Franklin County Tech School Assessment, the FY23 Police Cruiser, and the Community Compact.
Second from Bernie. Any further discussion? Yes, I only wish the police cruiser was a Dodge Charger and not a Ford Explorer hybrid or whatever they are. It's the last year for the Dodge Chargers. It's too bad we're not getting one. I've already had that go around with John.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Don't think I was more. All right. Oh, goodness.
All right.
Minutes.
Review and approval of the minutes for the May 30th, 2023 meeting.
I found a typo
Oh,
on my name. Sandra. Under the award of the Northfield Elementary School bathroom bid, seconded by Jacques Noes. I think that was the only thing I found. Under business, page 2. Okay. Goodness. All right, I passed the test.
I think we're going to need to have an executive session over that. It's a major reputation and character process.
You know how we feel about our names. Okay, that's all I could find.
Great.
I motion we approve the minutes of 5/30/2023
Second.
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Discussion on that? No? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sarah did.
Twice.
Okay.
Check.
Interim select board meetings. I don't think there were any meetings and events attended by select board members.
Oh, good.
Do you want me to begin? I did a site visit at an artisan business park in Windsor, Vermont, in the interest of economic development and learning what was out there. The same at a recreational business in New York near Schenectady. I went to the Northfield VFW social on Friday, and the 350th picnic, slung some hash, and the train talk at the West Northfield Playground.
It was busy.
Oh, I'm sorry, and a really big one. I went to the Massachusetts Municipal Association newly elected training, and had trainings in municipal open meeting law, finance and budgeting, and sources of state and federal funding.
Nice. Heath?
I did a tour of some of our troubled roadways in town since our last meeting, and then we had our first meeting of the roads subgroup with me, Andre, and Tom Walker. And I think that's it.
Ready?
That's funny. After seeing the thing on next door, I went and looked at the two things, the road conditions where the gravel and the dust is kicking up and that. I went and looked at them. Even though I'm not on that committee, I just wanted to see how bad it was. And I also at Mass Municipal Association had those two trainings the last 2 Mondays on the open meeting and on dealing with public comments. I did both those trainings.
Great. I had 3 meetings. Took a meeting with Superintendent Patricia Kinsella, Pioneer Valley Regional School District. Which I will be discussing under the school resource officer update. Fire meeting with Heath and the fire department, and it's fair to say that Heath was there too. So, then a library meeting with the library trustee, John McGowan, over energy concerns at the library regarding the mysterious sealing of all of the windows and determining when that was done and why it was done. So we're trying to get to the bottom of that situation. But yeah, those were my 3 meetings.
Yikes. I attended the Northern Tier East-West Railroad briefing. That was a Zoom. I had 2 ARPA and ARPA storefront meetings. After our last meeting, I actually followed up with FERCOG and with the Board of Health, as well as the Greenfield Health Director on nursing services, just so I could better understand where that was going. And on Friday, I sat in on the, I sat in on the rural economic, I have to look at the PowerPoint.
Development planning session.
Yeah, development planning session prepared by FERCOG. So that was super interesting. All kinds of communities, small rural communities from across Massachusetts, not just Western Mass. Let's see, I went to the Finance Committee meeting, and I also went to the public comment training from MMA yesterday on regulating comments at public meetings, de-escalation strategies for uncivilized discourse. Yeah, so quite a few Zooms.
Great. Good. Town administrator update.
Couple things. The State Reclamation Board has approved my membership to the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District, and I believe they've already been in touch with the Board of Health.
Yay.
So that process is taking place, and
We
on
can
its
check
way.
that off our list.
Mosquito control.
Priority
Yeah.
list.
You may notice I actually removed it from your future. You also may have noticed the planting of a few trees, I think about 7, on Main Street, mostly in front of the elementary school at this point, but I think there were a couple others in front of some homes. This is a result of the Tree 50th group, and they're planning for more going forward, and locations and approval with MassDOT are being worked on. So you may see more trees. Highway equipment, just to give you an update, you agreed on some auctioned equipment. I'd like to bring you back the results. $6,475 on 2 of those pieces has already been received.
How much?
$6,475 on 2 used pieces of equipment. I also wanted to point out that you received, and I don't know where the correspondence folder is, if it made it out here. Did we?
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is.
You received a letter in your correspondence announcing a $5,000 donation to Northfield EMS from Northfield Mount Hermon in appreciation of services they rendered to a student. The letter states that the faculty and staff were so impressed with the EMS services that they wanted to make this donation.
Wow.
So,
Who
shout
made
out
the donation?
That's goosebumps.
Northfield Mount Hermon School.
Wow.
I'll have to find it. I thought we put it in the mail folder, but I'm not sure if it, or it might be in the non-action folder. But I do have a copy if you make sure I did bring a copy. Yeah, here's a copy from Mark that this is actually Mark notifying us that he got the donation because he got the.
Wow.
Nice.
So, yeah, so just wanted to recognize that. It's always good. And also, just to let you know that as Mallory is moving along in our various grants that we're applying for, we're working on a small bridge one that's due in the next couple weeks. In fact, I think you have a letter of support. Well, no, that one you'll be getting on the 26th. But you have that one tonight, I think. Mallory has talked to the police chief in consultation. They're looking at a municipal road safety grant from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety to purchase 2 or more radar speed signs. They go for their physical installation. John wants to move away from and replace some of the trailers that he has to move around. So we'll be applying for that grant. That grant is due the 29th, so you will have a letter of support to sign at your next meeting for that grant submission. And Mallory is ready to start the parking survey. So that is where several times a day we look at certain areas. She's got a map and you would mark things on this map. So we'd like to do it over about 12 hours. So we're actually looking for some volunteers to come. They can pick specific times, and it doesn't have to be every day. Mallory would fill you in on that. And there's you could do a loop. It's about a 10-minute loop, and there's a map, and you just mark it a certain way. And that way she'll cover some, maybe I'll cover some, and we're looking for any volunteers who'd like to take that walk periodically. And what we're trying to do is just see what happens with parking over multiple days, over a certain period of time. When is it busy? When are things parked up? So that we can start to see, in terms of future parking, what we actually have going on. So anybody who's interested in, and it's really only going to be we're looking at these 2 lots and the parking on the street. So right now, it's just going to be from about MIMS through the IGA. So it's a very short loop walk. So anybody who'd like to take that walk and wants to volunteer to come, I'll put you in touch with Mallory, and you can pick some days and times. And she has some sheets, and you can fill those out. It'd be great help, because I don't think she really wants to spend 12 hours here doing that multiple days a week. And I can't blame her for that. Nobody wants to do that 12 hours a day. So we're looking for any volunteers. Some people may already be walking it and would love to just help participate in the parking survey.
Just counting cars.
It literally is counting cars. So it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy. And she has a map that has spaces, so you would actually literally count the spaces. So it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. And the purpose is to see what the pattern is in case we need to expand, or definitely with the plans of expansion.
Well, we've been talking about, do we need expanded parking? Where do we need expanded parking? When is the parking happening? And there are certain grants and certain other things, but doing this would really help us to be able to say what our needs are and demonstrate them if we go forward.
Okay.
So we're looking for some volunteers who would love to get out there during the summer and do a little walk around.
So should we just email?
Yeah, just or email me and I'll forward it to Mallory, and then she can help coordinate that effort, and we'll try to do some of that in town hall as well, because it's really hard for us to get from behind our desk, but if we have a really good excuse, I think that'll help us. So that's it for now.
Great. First order of business, Economic Development Committee, membership and missions and objectives.
So I want to speak to this first because I talked to Mallory about it today. And I actually would like you to put this appointment on hold, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. I told a little bit closer in the fall. First is we did not get a lot of response. I know you talked about wanting to have a somewhat larger committee with a breadth of experience, and we had 4 applicants and then 1 select board member. So it was very small. But I think there's a number of reasons why. First of all, you're heading into summer. So I think there's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm going away. I don't want to sign up for a committee that's going to meet every week, and I'm not here. But more importantly, we actually started talking about, we realized that in looking at the, and updating some possible draft changes to the goals and objectives, that it might make sense till we find out if we actually have some of these grants before we make them goals and objectives, because that would allow the committee to focus much more on what we need to do ourselves, or what we have support for, or work with the consultants, or move forward with those grants as part of their goals. And we don't know that till the end of summer. So it seemed that maybe this might be a little premature, and it might give us some more time to collect some more, get some more word out and collect some more people who are interested. It's not that people we thought weren't interesting, it's just that it seemed, if you wanted a more representative and a larger committee, that we didn't really get
we got 1 business and 3 citizens.
So you wanted some more business representation.
I would have liked another business representative.
I was literally
You were the
going-
only business representative.
Yeah, so that,
I was going to ask that question exactly of do we, what type of candidates will best make up this committee so that it's very evenly dispersed, and that if, putting this off wouldn't be a bad idea. It's fine. And I honestly didn't even speak to you about that.
And I think also we attended that rural economic development planning session, And it was a very interesting in one respect because they're actually working with the Rural Policy Advisory Council. So they put this together to help support their efforts. And we certainly have the slides. They discussed how difficult actually defining economic development in small and rural towns can be. It's not as simple as you think. And there's what people see as economic development varies widely, and they were trying to get some advice to the Rural Policy Advisory Committee. So all of that work is due and going into the state. So it might behoove us to actually wait and see what some of that work gives us in terms of direction and help to this committee, in terms of what other what a collection from across the state actually might help with in terms of direction, resources, because there were a lot of talks about what resources are out there and what resources we felt we should ask for as small communities for economic development from the Rural Policy Advisory Commission committee that was established by the state. So there was a lot of discussion that we may be on the brink of getting some of those resources, and it just seems like maybe it's premature to do this and wait a couple months till fall till all of these pieces fall more into place, and we also can get maybe some time to see if there's some other people who might be interested in starting to attend things. Fall tends to attract people. They come back from summer, and more people are willing to join things at that time as well. And we did really hope to see, I think, a little bit more business response, and we haven't seen that.
Okay, but let me tell you what this looks like. This looks like we didn't get, this looks like choosing. We got 5 people. It was proposed for a 5-person board. And there's nothing, last time, there was no question about are we premature. We talked good and long about it. It wasn't premature last week. And when we are looking at making a broader board, we can make a board that will accept more members, right? We can make a board that because I'm on the CONSCOM, and the CONSCOM used to be 7 members, and then they cut it back down to 5, and there's all this rigmarole. So I don't think that there's nothing premature about. We asked for people to come and work on behalf of the town, and when they stepped up and said yes, we're like, well, not you.
No, I don't think you're necessarily even going to eliminate any of these members. I think it was made pretty clear, and it might have been you who said you wanted actually a bigger, more diverse board. And we just felt like that didn't happen yet. It's not that any one of these people are going to be kicked off or culled out. The idea was maybe to get some more businesses involved, because it's kind of important if you're going to do an economic development committee that some of the businesses, and we, like we said, Steve's there, actually be involved in that, because the planning board should represent some of the people who are going to benefit or promote or actually run the businesses in the town. And but that's, I mean, it's up to you. You guys can form the committee, but we've had some discussion about where things were, and we wondered if this was the time, not to say no one on this group expressed interest, we're going to keep that. But I think that there was some concern that there weren't more businesses, honestly, to participate in a business economic development committee.
I understand. When we make these boards and committees, do we typically allow people to come forward to make their case?
Oh, sorry. Can I just dovetail off of that?
Yeah.
You just gave me an idea, like
Yes.
split. In thinking about this, I think we've had experience with large committees, and 2 recently where we spent a long time on 2 large committees, and we kind of got to the end and it wasn't exactly what we thought, and people put in a lot of time and energy. I think economic development is vague enough but important enough that perhaps we let it sit with the select board for the summer and invite people, especially the ones who did submit their letters of interest, to come and speak on their ideas, and also invite other people over the course of the summer to come and speak on what's important to them. So I know one thing that periodically comes up on like every survey, even the library survey, people talk about gas stations. So I think it would behoove us on the select board to better understand not just the folks that that applied, but try and get other people to come in and then sort through some of those ideas while we're waiting on these key grants. The other thing is the Shellbridge grant is due, I think, in September, so we would know whether or not that would be happening, which would be important to that end of town. So I would like to actually hear from all of those people who have ideas and to take that experience, but to actually set up an appointment so that they would come in and we would spend like a half an hour talking with, like Toya, for example. Right? Yeah, that's what I think. And then based on that, maybe organically, and I think I'm borrowing this phrase from Steve, is organically set the priorities as we hear them and as the grant information comes in, and as people come and speak to the select board on their ideas and their concerns.
Okay, so this is what I want to do then. We've heard from Andrea on missions and objectives. We've heard from Sarah. Now, under membership, I can make the argument to have Steve come forward and speak on behalf of himself, I would say. So, Steve, please, Steve, come up.
Actually, I don't want to speak on behalf of myself alone. I would say to you, and don't throw produce at me. It's been done before, but basically, I left the last meeting that you had about the economic development meeting with the idea that you had decided on a very small committee, two citizens. And when we left, we found out that we heard through the grapevine it was actually going to be larger. My guess is that there are people out here who actually thought that you had prescribed a small one, that you had spoken, and that was it. Sorry about that, but I think that's why you got a smaller number. The other reason why you got a smaller number is that the 350th is going on right now. We have standing room only crowds. Yes? Yeah. Almost in every event we have, there's standing room only crowds. These are your involved citizens. These are the people you want. But they're busy right now having a birthday party. And it's going very well, thank you. But I think that's where they are. No, I don't mean to be critical, but I think that you gave mixed messages.
Well, I think we had on the original recommendation a member of 5 board, but as I recall, Sarah thought that was too small. So I think we originally had it on the paperwork, but I think that Sarah thought the intent was to expand it. So
well, we left,
starting a meeting.
Yeah, and I think the idea was then that they would do it based on the response.
And starting a committee doesn't preclude adding people later.
Well, I guess I'd like to point to the 350th again. The 350th, I'm on that committee. Mm-hmm. It is a hub with spokes. Mm-hmm. In other words, you've got a number of subcommittees, and we're the fundraisers on that subcommittee, and it works. It's very difficult, but it works.
Yeah. And it took a while to get up and running too, because you had different working groups and different.
I would say it didn't take that long. We
well, some working groups,
yeah,
but yeah.
It's
not yours, Steve. Not yours. You guys were like you hit the ground running.
But I also wonder if a lot of the volunteers who might consider are also on a committee like that. That one in particular, which is very active right now and really just wouldn't have the time.
Which one is that?
The 350th.
Okay,
there's a lot
there are several committees on the 350th.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and I think those are the people that would get involved in this. Yeah. Some of them have economic development in the veins, I think, and some of them went and started doing research right away. And that's what we need. This is a business park. It's not a mall. It's not an industrial park. It's a park that will have all kinds of things in it. And when you go out and you research those kinds of entities, you find some really interesting potential tenants.
Well,
Anyway.
I don't think the committee was meant just to be the business park. And part of it was too, is we don't know if we have the grant, which would help us actually get a consultant. And I think that's part of what happened. I mean, I worked with the board last time that tried to start a business park committee. You get to a certain point and then you really do need professional technical help. And so we were hoping, and we applied for a grant to help that. And we'll know about that in a couple of months, early fall. And that I think would be extremely helpful to this committee, because if they're going to focus on multiple things, they're going to need assistance in some of these very specific objectives that we would be
I
assigned.
don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
Again, the governance committee learned that themselves.
Yeah.
They learned that they needed to get specialized things. So when your clerk is going for trainings left and right kind of thing, and other people in town are doing, administrative assistant, whatever, you're saying that you need to get much more training. I'm done.
Thanks, Steve. All right, folks, so then where are we going from here?
I'm sorry. So on the mission and objectives topic, I think that I agree with Andrea. It's not just about a business park, and I think that one of the things that I personally think is important, and citizens have spoken to me also, is avoiding. I mean, we're a small town, and we want to keep our small town flavor, and we don't need it. I really object to a lot of red tape and paying for a lot of red tape and a lot of let's wait for the professionals. I mean, there is a place, like with the EMS building, we've got really specific things that we need done. But in economic development, I don't necessarily think that we need, until we get further down the road, we don't need a professional to tell us what we as citizens and we as business, and I actually have a small business as well, what we as citizens and we as business owners want and need. This committee is supposed to only be an advisory committee. It's starting out, B mentioned it multiple times, advisory. It's at the last meeting. It's only supposed to be an advisory committee. And I think pushing back on advising, I don't see why we would. Also on the missions, when we were talking about, I'd like to add also to the mission that it include the words that it's something about honoring the town master plan and the open space plan. That's brand new. The open space plan is brand new. Okay.
Okay.
Now, where do we stand with the people that did already express interest? Are we going to form a committee, or are we going to postpone it?
It's up to you.
Okay. So, we want more business. I think we had about 3 citizens that did. Sarah expressed an interest in it.
Well,
but
so I don't email the board. I was going to express an interest in it
yeah,
as well.
We
I was
were very
waiting for the
flexible on the amount of people on it. I even thought maybe 2 select board members. I didn't see a problem with that because, I thought 7 people on the board was reasonable, because you're going to have people not be able to make it. And even though we said 2 citizens, if you have 3 and they're all, reasonable candidates,
Oh, thanks.
I don't see why you wait to accept them onto this committee, onto this advisory committee.
I think, if I may, I think we were expecting, kind of like if I go back to the police search, we had tons of people. I don't remember the exact number, so it wasn't like millions, but we had so many people, we had to actually sort through all of them and pick. And I think with economic development, with the smaller number, I think that kind of raised a red flag for me. I was expecting there would be so much interest that it would be like the police chief search committee, that we would actually be looking at lots of different people and lots of different ideas and kind of sorting through them. I don't think that we should push off economic development itself, I think we should, like I said, invite people as well as ourselves to speak about what we think economic development is. We can see how that lines up with what's coming out of the Rural Policy Commission. That would be interesting. But for me, you know, my interest is right now is stemming out of the storefront work that we're doing with the ARPA grants. And we actually uncovered, we already knew about it, but not everybody who has a business in town has a storefront. So it was interesting to talk with a couple of folks that have a huge business, but it's not necessarily a retail store that you would go into, like, you know, the mini mart or something. Anywho, I think that we ourselves should spend more time talking about economic development, what we think it means, what we want to focus on, and ask citizens to come in and talk about their view of economic development and what's the most important to them.
Yeah, like a whole summer program on it.
Yeah, and literally have them, so then, and also get off of the, you know, people come in and do the citizens' concerns, but they can't really have a discussion with folks because might not be on the agenda, is have people propose, and then we set up an appointment like the fire department did.
Right.
And then they can come in and talk at will about their ideas and present some stuff to us. I mean, I've been thinking more in terms of the storefronts, restaurants, things like that, less on the business park stuff, to be honest. But I was assuming we could bring in Barry Bordner and some of the folks that did all of that prior work and see how it lines up with what Sarah noticed on her field visit. That would be interesting. And do it as like a summer project,
I like that idea.
And then see how it organically develops, because I know Sarah's not, because you're new, but the last 2 or 3 years we have had committees, really giant committees that take up a lot of time. And when we got to the end of the the public safety complex one, that was somewhat of a, I don't know what the word is. Personally, it was disappointing because I felt like a lot of time and energy had been put into it, and it didn't line up with where a group of citizens thought it should be. And I just really want to avoid setting up a large or small committee who spends a lot of time and energy, like the 350th.
And is not representative?
Well, it's not as representative as something like the 350th. I think Steve raised a great idea, and that was kind of like a light bulb moment too for me, was that was somewhat organic in that the working groups formed around the different things that people thought were the priorities and important. Like there's one around the parade, there's one around the fundraising and the engagement with sponsors, there's one around history and the library, so that all of that. And yeah, we've had great turnout from the committee members. So maybe we should be looking more at that model and less at, you know, are setting up 5 or 7 people to represent everybody and everything when there's so many ideas that we haven't narrowed down yet. I just would like to do a little bit more winnowing of the ideas to even see if, do we set up a working group on a business park, for example? Do we set up, is it one of those things where you set up then another working group on storefront ideas and another group on signage, all of those? I just think there's more that we could be talking about as a group and deciding what the select board priorities and ideas are before we kind of put a whole mission and purpose in front of a group of people, you know, and it'll start to suck up their summer. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
All right, well, I think we've heard enough of this at this point. Do you have any last
I do.
words?
I have a question. So it felt like the thing that you were saying was a committee that got together and decided where to focus. And that was, I think that's what the Economic Development Advisory Committee is. So you're saying, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I just think we should do that, but do it in the fall as the 350th is winding down, because I think Steve's right. I think a lot of the folks who can get things done are actually in those working groups.
I don't know, some people who wanted to get things done sent their letters in. I think it's disrespectful. And we said that we wanted to do it. I'm not saying that those can be the only people, right? I'm saying keep the door open, but
Yep.
I think that advisory, all we're doing is saying, let's get together and bring stuff to the select board. It's frustrating. It doesn't,
Well,
it feels choosy.
Feels disrespectful of the people that did apply to me. Because I saw a couple different names that I don't normally see involved.
So bring them in.
Well,
And let's talk
they
to
wanted
them.
to be on the committee. I just,
I think we should be the committee for the summer and bring these people in.
Well, I'm the chair, and I will advocate for inviting each person that has any ideas on how to create economic development or whatever, and have them come right in front of the board and speak for 15 to 20 minutes, or however
Half
much
an
time,
hour.
and they can get their money's worth that way for the summer. We've got a lot going on with this 350th. It's very overwhelming, if you will. And I think that should be our main focus at this time. That's not to say economic development is not going to move forward. We hired a grant coordinator who's going above and beyond getting money for this town and many other projects. We also have a talented town administrator guiding the select board. And sometimes in public policy and in government, things happen, things change, and that's all part of the business. So I'd like to consider moving on at this point. I think it would be appropriate if we took a vote in some form of how we feel about this Economic Development Committee. So
You
would
allowed
something-
somebody else to speak.
would something like that need a motion or something?
Well, if you want to take a vote, yes, somebody could make a motion.
Okay.
That's whatever you want that to look like.
Okay. So you applied for it too, right?
Yes.
Come on up and speak.
James Hastings, 30 North Lane. I think you're going about it all wrong. I think a lot of times when you do these grants, they're from the outside in, and they really don't represent the people. I think what would be useful is for you to organize a select board public forum, a round table, and get people there. And I don't mean all summer long, but just, and it's the same old thing as like with the emergency services building. You need to invite and you need to encourage. And I just think you're going about it all wrong.
Can I ask a question? So,
Could I just make one comment on the grant? It's to hire a facilitator to do just that. To run
You're
public.
missing the point.
Well, but the point is, if she's saying to bring together people to have that process, I'm not saying that's the way we have to go with it, but I think that if it's not somebody coming in with their ideas and making choices for the town. I think the idea is to bring in a facilitator who actually does that, tries to bring people into the process. And I just wanted to speak to that. That's not what the grant is about. It's not for someone to come and make decisions, because that's not the focus of what we're asking for, nor is it what they would send out from the Department of Community and Economic Development. It's to try to facilitate organically, internally, your priorities.
we actually did that with the public safety. One of the public safety grants actually helped us do a different kind of, I don't remember if James and Howard were there, where it was like roundtables. So
Yes.
I think we need to clarify that when we talk about a committee and using grants, it's an and. it's both. It's the committee and grants. They run in parallel, and both the grants should support what a committee or what the select board, whichever group it is, want to do. That's the point of the grants. That's why we've been going after grants. It's not to supplant or have people come from the outside and tell us what to do. We've never, in my experience, like with the grants that we've done with public safety, we've never had people tell us what to do. It was always, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Which group can we get together? Where can we do it? And then they would do all of the work and compile all of the, which was really helpful. They would compile a lot of the answers and put it together for groups to look at.
You're talking about the community compact we did on public safety and succession planning.
They
did
Collins
community
Center, right?
service. They did community surveys. They went and talked to individual groups. They talked to departments. They did surveys within the departments. They held a forum where people worked at different tables and then moved around and made their thing. They put together a whole, but it was all organic from the town. They didn't tell anyone what to do. I just want to say that, so that's that grant. I'm not saying that's what we're proposing to do again, but
we saw the result of it.
Andrea, did you say something about doing a vote for this or a motion?
that's up to you. It's really up to the board how you
I just want to make sure we're following the law here. The law is a very
it's up to you
important
whether
thing
you
to follow.
establish the committee, yes or no, and how you want to do that. That's really up to the board.
Okay.
It's on the
we're a
agenda,
quorum.
so you can
Okay.
handle it however you like.
Okay. Steve, quickly, and then we're gonna.
Well, I just wanted to say, we have the reverse model. The governance committees, I was on the highway visiting towns about the size of Northfield, interviewing select board people, town administrators, so were my co-members of that committee. This town is full of very well-educated, smart people. Unusually so, I would say. And we have to not, as B said, not, well, and also as Bernie said, slight the people who are here who do have some of the skills that could suffice and get things going. We can do surveys of people. We can do that. One other thing I just want to say is that the economic development, in my mind, is not just the business park. What we're looking at is a dwindling business community in Northfield. It's pitiful. It's pathetic. And what we want to do is we want to build that again. And there are two places to do it. One is in the existing houses, but they have to agree they want to start a business in that house. And the other is to find another place to do that. And that's what the business park is all about.
I think we'll just take a vote at this time. We'll go around, and voting yes will be the approval of this development committee, and voting no will be, I would say, seeking alternative measures such as bringing people up throughout the summer and handling this at a later point until the fall. So, B, yes or no?
No is waiting.
Yeah, it's waiting. Yeah, no is waiting at this time. It's not moving forward
Okay.
with the original design of this committee.
I just want to say I'm in favor. I just have a question about the timing, so no. At this time.
It's a no from me.
It's a yes from me.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then it moves on. So we have 3 yeses and 2 nos. So shall we then move on to the members that we have? I guess that's what we're going to have to do. So
Well, we had left it open on whether we were going to go exactly. You know, right now we only have 1 business owner. We have 3 residents, and we have 2 people from the select board that expressed an interest. B mentioned it, but I mean, I think anybody that has expressed an interest should be on it. Even though we have 3 residents and we only had 2 down, I don't think it hurts. I don't think you're gonna get everyone here every time. You talked about large committees and how we can't always get somebody, you know, you start with 9 people and then you only have 4 people there. So, I mean, at a meeting, you know, we wanna start with enough, so we don't wanna start with 5 people and then end up with 2 or 3 there.
Right.
So I'm saying, you know, for my liking, I'd say we take the 3 residents that we have that express an interest. We have 1 business owner, and I really feel like we should try to recruit another business owner, and probably like 2 select board members. And I see 2 that are very interested. I mean, she's done homework, you're interested, you've done background work on it too. That's my feeling on it. Go with 3 residents, try to recruit another business owner, and do 2 representatives from the select board. That's my feeling on it. Thank you.
I just need to, sorry, I know this is a critical point of discussion. I just need to step away for a minute just to get some water.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna take some pills.
So I think anybody who, like Bernie said, anybody who wants to get on this committee, the people who applied and showed interest now, I think we have a better chance with, you know, a minimal amount of people recruiting more on an existing committee rather than putting it off. And, you know, we made our vote, but my reasoning for it was putting it off may cause some of the people who expressed interest to lose interest. So you're gonna end up with even a lesser amount. And I think that whatever progress, you know, even a partial committee can make right now, they have a better chance of coming up with ideas and recruiting more people down the road between now and whenever we would have tried to kick this up. So I say anybody who's willing and interested, they at least can make some progress and see where it goes from here. And I know Mr. Stoya's ability to get out there and motivate the public, so I'm sure he's going to have like a band of people behind him by the time fall rolls around. So.
So are we looking at like a 7-member board now?
We're going to start with 6. From what I said, start with 6 and then try to add 1 business owner. And add another business owner.
Right.
We do have 1 town staff person. Is that Mallory?
Yes.
Okay, so Mallory's on it.
Okay. So I need to see a list of all the people that want to apply. I think it's right here or something like that. So 2 board members, Sarah, you seek interest in this?
I do, and I
Okay.
sent a letter in by the deadline.
Yes. Who's the other board member?
Dee expressed an interest.
Well, it depends on if she still does.
Yeah, well, we'll see when she comes back. She didn't turn a letter in, but she said she was interested.
Right.
Generally, select board members don't turn a letter in.
Okay.
Discuss it at your committee.
So for our business owner, Steve, I guess you'll be the business owner representative. Is that cool?
I think there'll be other business owners, I think.
Okay.
And I think too, you know, even though if a business owner wants to come speak at the meeting, you're not going to turn them away. That's just stupid.
No, we would never do that.
Yeah, you better not. No,
That would be stupid.
no, it would be. Yeah. No.
Okay, Jinx will be a resident. Okay. Robin. Is Robin here?
I am.
Yes.
I did not apply. Am I
No.
getting appointed?
Different Robin. Different Robin.
Different Robin.
Okay. I was gonna say, I just want to...
Vandermaat. Robin Vandermaat.
That is not me. I'm not changing.
Oh, I know that. Oh, we were trying to rope you into a committee.
I'm feeling it.
Robin Vandermelt is an interested party.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Noham, I have spoken to him, and he's interested. Him
Oh, him, is it him? Okay.
and he's interested and has a experience in economic development, specifically in historical, botanical, and indigenous approaches.
I've worked with Noam. He's incredibly intelligent, very well educated.
Noam. Okay. Noam will be another resident then.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I get this right. Okay, so we have Sarah, board member, B, potential board member when she returns, Steve as the business owner, Jinx resident, Robin resident, Noam resident. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mallory as 7. Okay. B, did you want to be a representative on this committee as another select board member?
I do, but I can't do it this summer.
Okay.
I've got to get through the
Yeah.
ARPA.
We can always add, like you said.
Yeah, that
We'll
would-
see how you
that would
might
be
lose
good.
people. And,
I'm just going to have to take some time off.
okay, so that leaves us with
6.
6 for now, and we'll recruit business.
That cool? It doesn't make an odd number, so I would imagine voting might be complicated.
Well, they could come to us with, it's an advisory committee, it's not a board that.
Yeah.
They don't
Has to
have that
vote.
type
Yeah.
of power. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'll make a motion that
Yeah.
we accept Jinx, Hastings, Robin Vandermatt, Noham,
Catch it?
Catch it, Shilling.
okay, as residents for the Economic Development Committee Advisory. And businesses, Steve Stoya, and on the board, Sarah Kearns.
Second.
And then, yeah, then Mallory will assume.
And Mallory
as well.
will assume, yeah.
Okay, motion by Bernie, seconded by Sarah. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I
Okay.
missed the last part of the discussion. I'm sorry.
So,
Yeah.
so the board has been created. I appreciate the passion and the interest from those in our panel, studio panel, we'll call it that, and from members of the select board, and from Andrea as well for having an alternate idea, and for myself for that matter. You know, it doesn't always work out the way we want it to, but that's
Well,
how
that-
government is sometimes.
I just want to
So,
say that's how we have done things in the past. We don't always agree on everything and we discuss it.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
so
Yeah.
Do we appoint someone to try to get this going for now? Do we have the select board member coordinate with the people?
Yeah, I can reach out to folks and
yeah,
we'll do
if you want to do that, you go ahead, do your
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, just to say that there's one person, I figured either that or Steve, somebody would do it.
I'll do it and then I can bring stuff back. Once we get a meeting, we'll discuss the details.
Sandy?
Do we have a term expiration on that? Want to do it for a year?
Let's do it through the year and then we can renew like we do with everything else.
6/30,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So then everyone's on the same schedule too.
Do you have to vote on that, by the way?
We technically should vote on that
Yeah.
because we didn't have it in the official motion. So
I'll make a motion that we
just do it to be safe.
do the aforementioned members of the Economic Development Advisory Committee for a term ending 6/30/2024.
Second.
I'll assume no discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Term expiration has been created. Very good.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. We're going to move on from this topic. Thanks again, folks, for the passion and interest. Public meeting postings. public comment policy. This is a very important topic as we look to keep lawsuit free during a very questionable and interpretive agenda topic.
Well, there's two things here, not the third. So this one talks about public meeting postings, because I think Sarah asked that to be added to the agenda.
Yes.
And public comment policy, period policy, not your code of civil conduct. And the reason that's not on here is because we're waiting for the MMA and the advisors they have legally. If you attended the June 5th regulating comments on public meetings, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you don't want to put a policy in place that actually gets you sued. So what they're doing is they're going to formulate a model policy that you can then review and change and adopt for that specific purpose, for participation in public civility, which is different than your public comment policy, like when and how people make public comment, and your meeting posting. So that's why that third topic is just missing. I'm waiting for that model policy to come from them so that you guys can then have that to review, so that we're not trying to create that without some legal advice.
May I speak, Alex?
Just one quick question. What does Attorney Blake think about this?
Well, we got a public notice from our law, KP Law,
Okay.
talking about it. And actually, some of the bigger communities, I don't think are recommending it here, actually dropped public comment off the agenda until they have in place a policy that they feel is not going to get them sued, but is enforceable, and because they have more issues. I'm not saying the town of Northfield does, but so you do have a code of public civility, and I looked at it, and it's problematic. It's got some of the same language that exactly got the Southborough town in trouble. So we do need to amend that, change that policy.
If somebody wants to come up before us and call us all rats behinds, we can't really tell them that they can't do that. That's their First Amendment right to address us as public officials.
Correct, but there are things they can't do. They can't disrupt the meeting. They can't use words of incitement. They can't. So there are specific things I think you do want to have in your policy because they do protect you and you can enforce them.
And there is time limits too.
Well, that's
That's
the public comment policy. So separate the two out for a minute. The Code of Civil Conduct is different than the public comment policy, where you can determine when you want it on your agenda, how you want to manage it. They are two separate. Now, what they say during that has to do with your Code of Civil Conduct, and that's the piece we're going to come back to when we get some advice from the state as best they can.
Because that meeting on the 5th was totally useless.
Right.
To me, it was totally useless.
Because they
they just talked in circles. The lawyer that lost the case whined about losing it.
Well, but you have to understand the problem is nobody now knows, in light of the Supreme Court's ruling, what's legal and what's not legal. So what they're going to try to do is help people get away from language that people have adopted that's going to get them in trouble. So everyone needs to take out things that say you have to act civilly. You actually don't have to act civilly.
Non-peaceable and disorderly is what.
Right. So we need to amend that policy.
And we can also, they can speak if you end up putting a time limit. They can speak when they're done. They're done.
That's your public comment policy.
Right.
Public comment. So this is one of the trainings that I went to. In addition, I did attend the online one, but I went to the in-person one. And it was given by the Massachusetts Municipal Association lawyer, Mr. Macarius. And it was, and he was really clear that freedom of speech, I don't think it's that it needs to be removed, it's that it's not enforceable. So based on freedom of speech, they can say in general any grumpy thing that they want, any unfriendly thing that they want, but except they can't threaten you, right? And they can't incite violence. And that he didn't mention that towns were removing public comment. He said the way they were handling it was they were limiting the time span because you can control the time, but not the manner.
That's what people are putting in place now. But when the ruling came down, many towns immediately didn't this has been thought through now for a month. And so people have been working on how to change their public comment policy. But there is some problems. The Supreme Court of the United States and the Supreme Court of Massachusetts now actually conflict. And there's going to be some lawsuits over that. I mean, I don't know how they're going to reconcile that, but the Supreme Court of the United States said you can't call somebody a Nazi, and the Supreme Court of Massachusetts said yes, you can.
It's free speech, right?
Right.
How lovely.
So because one's considered words to incite. So that we do want to review the policy to make sure that we don't set you up for somebody complaining about you restricting their speech.
But I mean, I want to bring it back to our small town. We have people coming in disagreeing strongly and being polite, and we haven't had that kind of behavior. And I understand, recently.
Sarah, it has existed during my time on the board.
And it also takes into account behavior other than your meetings. Any meetings in town meeting, and to some extent behavior in town hall directed at the staff. So this code of civil conduct, it goes way beyond select board meetings. So that's why we just have to be careful.
Where are we at right now?
I want to be careful. So we have public meeting postings and we have public comment policy, and we're talking about the code of civility, which is to follow.
Which is going to come back to you.
Right. So can we kind of turn the discussion to the public comment piece? To Sarah's point, for the most part, people come and do great things and say great things in succinct fashion. Here, that's not always the case in other committees. But public comment policy, I think we've had it, citizens' concerns, we've had it in different spots on the agenda with different thinking about what was useful to people. So this is our opportunity to figure out what is most useful now. We've been doing citizens' concerns at the beginning, but then we have the topics that follow that people are really interested in speaking about, which is why, just for the point of information, why we had citizens' concerns later in the agenda was because there had been some concern that people wanted to hear the discussion first and then comment afterwards. So we're trying different things, and I just want to point out that it doesn't really matter as long as we do it and we have some boundaries around perhaps time and whether or not we can answer questions, and you've been trying to make it clear that we can't really discuss things that are not on the agenda.
Right.
So do you want to continue? I guess I would ask the group, based on the experience so far, do you want to continue having citizens concerns at the top or close to the top, and then possibly putting a time limit on it, like you get 3 minutes? I think that's what the school committee does, by the way. Yeah.
I think where we have it right now is great, because I've seen people sit here through really long meetings for their chance to say something for a whole 2 minutes. So I think having it up in the beginning is great, and exactly what Joe Graveline did today, where he wanted to speak on something later on. I think it gives him the opportunity to speak at that moment, but then also sort of proposition the board or the chair to say, I do want to speak about this thing you have later on. Might I be able to speak then? And at that point, the chair can be like, when we get to that point, why don't you come back up? And that way, it's relevant to the conversation when it's happening. But then if the chair does decide, like, no, this is your time to say it, then at least they have it in the beginning of the meeting to say what they want to say. So I think right now where we have it is a great place to have it.
Yeah. Sarah?
One of the really cool things about the meeting that I went to is there were people from all over Massachusetts, and they did a best practices talk, and a bunch of different people in different towns handled this in different ways. And the larger towns, actually, often they would have a citizen's comment at the beginning and or the end. So we're not limited to one citizen comment. And they would also have, as somebody just said, I'm sorry, I got lost in the shuffle, a comment, a time when the chair would offer people to comment on specific items, because it kept it their reasoning was it kept it topically with the thing so that it could be considered at the same time. So I just would say, I would like to add that we know that it's within the precinct of the chair to make these kind of decisions, but we are not limited by the number of times that we can have public comment. We are not limited to one, is what I mean.
I'm also going to point out as
Time.
just that we do have a certain amount of business to do at each meeting, and that takes up a fair amount of time. So public comment is definitely important, so is actually getting the business done. So we do have to balance the amount of time. So we're already at like 10
Yeah,
to 8.
we're at 2 hours into this meeting. We
Yeah.
still have 7 things to get to.
Right, and they're all big,
We
so-
really need to get
In
moving.
an executive session.
So,
Right.
I think at a further date, another meeting at some point, when we get more detail, we maybe put a time limit.
Well, I don't think that, I think you can make a decision on public comment now. I don't think you're gonna.
Yeah, you can do
change
time
on
limit
that.
now.
We're splitting off the code of civil conduct.
That way you would keep your citizens' concerns from running. That's up to Alex then on that.
Do we have to have like a time limit set as part of our policy, or could Alex see there's a hot topic, there's 20 people in the room, okay, I see this is gonna take a while, I'm gonna impose 2 minutes, like, can he decide? He can decide on the fly if he needs to,
I
right?
think it may be dangerous to do
I
that.
think that's a little dangerous only because
But we have that option
you'd
in our
have to
policy.
enforce, you'd have to allow that at every meeting for everyone. So if 10 people show one meeting, 20 people show another meeting, 4 people, if you're gonna give it to everyone, you're gonna have to give it to everyone.
Right, but for the sake of time, because there's 20 people in the room, we say tonight, normally we don't have a restriction because one person steps up and then they can speak, but if there's 20 people in the room, we gotta limit it to 2 minutes per person.
Right, and do you want 40 minutes of public comment? Maybe you do.
And also, it could be seen as choosing who's talking. So maybe we could have something on the books that said if the, you know, up to 5 comments is untimed. You know, I mean, anyway, I want to make sure that we don't miss the other item there, which is the public meeting postings.
Well, are we done with the public comment?
No, but I just want to make sure we don't.
Yeah,
we'll get to
no,
it,
we're not, yeah.
all right, so just public comment policy. I just want to keep citizens' concerns up at the top. It gives the chair a lot of discretion, but I just want to make sure, I keep saying this all the time because of how easy work towns can get sued, that I just am following the law and I'm following the right policies and stuff. Because at any moment, someone can say, I'm going to file an open meeting law complaint against you for whatever reason. And then that costs us money. And that makes the individual look bad. It makes the board look bad, whether they did anything or didn't do anything. So it's a very unfortunate world we live in. Public comment policy.
So we all agree that we'll leave it where it is.
Yeah, let's leave it where it
So let's
is.
check that off the list of,
But I didn't have any issue necessarily of having Joe or Steve come up on an issue that directly involved them. I don't really see that as a problem. I just don't want to create this precedence where at any time for any agenda item throughout the night, then we have people coming forward to share their ideas. If that's how they feel about it, then they should run for select board. Because, you know, I just don't want to create that
let me just point
standard.
out, we have several options. So as we did with Soulfest, we actually devoted one meeting to lots of time regarding public comment. We also took written comments so that we could get those in place before. So it depends on the topic,
Right.
but I think for the usual, let's say the usual is people come in, we don't necessarily know what their concern is or their question is, right? And so they approach and we can just say, okay, you get 2 minutes, go. And if it's on the agenda, then you can make those determinations, but maybe just set a time limit so then you know each person who wants to come up has a set time limit.
Yeah.
Because some people will come up and spend, especially once, I know some folks will come up and really sit there for quite a while. So I'm not against people participating so much as we do have to move on and like actually get all this stuff done. So
Yeah.
we've got to balance it.
And 2 minutes is a really long time to talk.
Yeah,
You know?
surprisingly. And especially in front of camera. A lot of people are really shy about coming up in front of camera. So I don't want people to think that's the only way, that you can use email. And I think this came up as one of Jinx's questions. When people email me, I respond that I received it and I copy Sandra and Andrea so they can be advised about how to address the question, because it might be addressed without coming to a select board meeting. I've had plenty of those. But the ones that want to come, then they've made that known, and then everybody knows about it, and then they can present it to you as the chair, like, oh, we've got X number of people who want to come in and speak about this, and then you can make a determination about how you set up the agenda,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's more than, I just want to emphasize, there's more than one way to put in comments, but we're specifically talking about at the meeting. So I would say,
I just want to echo one thing. I mean, we
Yeah.
have gotten stuff from B that we could resolve. I mean, it
That's
turns
what I
out
mean,
it was
yeah.
resolvable, and they didn't need to come to a select board meeting and spend, you know, your time and their time. They didn't have to
Waiting,
come before the
yeah.
board because it turns out we had the answer.
Right.
We could help them.
Or it was something
Or
different.
if enough people responded on something, we could say, this is a great agenda topic, and we give it to the chair and say, we've had a bunch of comments on this, maybe it needs to be an agenda topic. But if it scatters among the board, and we don't know about it, we can't help, and then it comes to a meeting, and then we have discussion, and then it turns out it was solvable sooner. Even sooner for them, so they didn't have to wait.
It really depends on the whole situation too. I mean, you can't have a policy for everything. It's the same thing with law. You can't have a law for everything. There has to be some form of discretion associated to a member who has the power of that. So I think what we're doing is, for the most part, fine right now. We haven't really done anything wrong, so why reinvent the wheel?
I think I would just put in the time limit just so you have that tool.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
And your preface, by the way, your introduction has been really helpful, I think, in helping people shape how they're going to present to the board.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'll start a timer. We all have iPhones. We know what these things are, right?
Yeah.
They all have stopwatch timers on them. Go. And it's going to be something
one
like
of the
that.
techniques from this workshop was, if somebody is saying unpleasant things,
Right.
not fit for television, let's say, then you can say, one of the techniques was, you only have 3 minutes. Are you sure? Is there anything else that you, or the clock is ticking down, so is there anything else that you would like to discuss besides calling us
Yeah,
names?
the workshop
Yeah.
said just don't engage them if they're being
Right.
aggressive.
Right, but the time limit can really help in
Yes.
for those out of character for Northfield moments, shall we say.
I tried the smile and nod approach 4 years ago, and I got threatened by 30 people in a room, so that didn't work out very well. But I'll continue to try it. So,
I'll make a motion that we limit the public comment to 3 minutes
Per person.
per person. Well, 3 minutes is fine.
have 5 seconds.
10 seconds, go!
Speak.
Speak fast.
Are you going to limit the time of the public comment period or the number of people who can speak, or are you just going to do 3 minutes?
Just do
no matter-
3, I think, because if we had people come in, we had 10 people come in, we'd have to listen to them.
That's 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
And we could preface at the beginning, do you have something new to say? I know Beat did it to me before. Do you have something new to say?
Oh, new to add, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't happen often, so if we have to deal with that situation where we have
Yeah.
30 people in here.
With additional time modifications to be set at the discretion of the chair.
Why don't,
You have to be careful not to
Yeah.
be seen as picking and choosing.
Right?
Yeah.
You say some people can speak and then.
that's
turn
why
others
you
off.
have policies, so then you're not looked at as doing something, personal.
We can always change it if we find
It's not work.
it's not
Right.
working.
Yeah.
So
I thought for
motion-
now, with the amount of people we have speaking, if we limit it to 3 minutes, we keep things moving.
Okay, motion is still on the floor for the 3 minutes.
Second.
What was the motion again? I'm sorry. Is
The
it just
limit-
the 3 minutes?
For 3 minutes
Okay.
There's
Each
no-
person,
per person
There's no limit on time or number of people.
not at the moment.
at the
Okay.
moment. We can always change that.
All right, and a second by Sarah. Discussion on that. Are we good?
Yeah, I think I would just limit the whole thing to 15 for
Mm.
now. And then if it becomes longer, then adjust the agenda for the next meeting. That would be my recommendation. But I'm good with the 3 minutes for now.
Okay.
And I'm also good with periodically reviewing like we did with
Yes.
the COVID sick policy, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fabulous. Public meeting postings.
Not to be a broken record, but at the meeting that I went to, I learned that we're actually out of compliance with that. We're supposed to have, it's supposed to be e-listing, and there's, I can get the specifics.
E-listing's an option.
it's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be on the, we're supposed to have phased it out. And one of the reasons is that if it's an indoor bulletin board, that people don't have access to it during
Ours
off
is open
hours.
24/7.
Okay.
And lit.
But I spoke to the lawyer specifically about this, and he said you shouldn't still be using it. It should have been phased out.
The reason that's problematic for us is that, for example, today the internet was down. In fact, we had a lightning strike, the internet was down for a week. We wouldn't have been able to post anything for a week, so nobody could have met. So
Well, we can have it as we can have the bulletin board as a backup, but people can't haul ass down here to look at the bulletin board all the time.
Towns vote usually what their primary posting is. So if the web is supposed to be our website is supposed to be our primary posting, you need to vote that as a policy, and you need to put some real restrictions on it, because if she and Dan are out, nobody can post on the website. We don't all have access to do that. And it's happened on Thursdays, which means if someone wants to meet on a Monday or Tuesday, they got to then get that in by Wednesday. We need to disseminate a whole bunch of information to people about getting their postings in, because they may miss that deadline and then they can't have a meeting.
Well, we need to look into it, because I don't think that we're in compliance.
We also need them to call and confirm, because some people have thought they've sent it in and it hasn't been received, doesn't get posted, and then they complain that it didn't get posted, and it turns out we never received it. So
I hear you. We need to look further into it. And also, oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it.
Well, do you want to get we can put that on the...
I'm going to ask the town attorney just to make sure that our town attorney is giving our advice, that this is the first I've heard that the website has to be your primary posting.
Well, we're supposed to have, he said we were supposed to have already phased it out. That's what he said. That was the legal.
I want to check. But
And I'll send you the information that I have. I didn't.
we do have, members of the community that don't actually have internet.
Right, and we can have it, but it's posted both places. Sometimes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
It's always posted down there. Sometimes, and it's only been once. I think this is the one time it got missed in months and months. I can't remember the last time a meeting didn't get on the website. It's been a long time. So we're very conscientious about it.
Yeah.
But there are constraints that boards are going to have to become aware of if this becomes the primary means, because it may restrict when they can post. And we've had a lot of boards that want to meet within 2 or 3 days, 48 or 36 hours, 48 hours, and then we'll be able to tell them no. They can't meet.
So I have, my source is coming directly from the mass.gov website from the Office of the Attorney General, which has authority and jurisdiction over this topic. So what we do, to my understanding, is in full compliance of the law. 48 hours in advance of a public meeting, notices may be posted on a bulletin board, in a loose leaf binder, or on an electronic display of some form, television, computer monitor, provided that the notice is conspicuously visible to the public at all hours, which that door is open 24 hours, 7 days, lit, near the municipal building in which the clerk's office is located. And, just a second. In the event that meeting notices posted in the municipal building are not visible to the public at all hours, which is not the case because it is, then the municipality must either post notices on the outside of the building or adopt a municipal website as the official method of notice posting. So
you have to adopt it as your method of posting.
We haven't adopted it as our method of posting because we have a 24/7 meeting posting station at the basement of the town hall, which has never been locked. So.
Right.
Well, it was locked when I started, but we actually decided that in compliance with the law, it needed to be visible and accessible 24/7. So we decided to stop locking the outdoor and lock the indoor, because we already had a bulletin board with a light over it. So instead of trying to install a bulletin board, because we looked, it turned out it would be where they had to get.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Office of the Attorney General.
We actually decided to make that.
And I believe you, the lawyer gave me some information that I will forward on to you, so that when you're talking to folks, you can also see what he said.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Can you send out that link or have Andrea send out that link?
Sure, you just have to type it in, it comes right up.
Yeah, I know that.
It's under, there's a law.
Yeah.
That was my understanding as well.
So.
Okay.
Great. All right, Campus Center Community Collaborative Committee, C5, yeah. So that's on the agenda. We have a few letters from some citizens, including one of our very own select board members who wrote a letter in regards to the future of the C5. So I don't really know what we're discussing in regards to it. I think we just maybe we're discussing whether we want to disband it completely or not. I know we had spoken about that before. So
Well, the last time what we were going to do was to get feedback, was to have, we asked the town administrator to reach out to Thomas Aquinas.
And we have that in.
And she
Right.
did, right?
Yeah. So it's a follow-on to that.
And you can read it for itself. I mean, I think the key to me are, there's two things. I mean, they think that they very much feel that they're growing as part of the community and they want to continue to be part of that community. That was the point we really wanted to make. But they also stated that if the select board thinks there's a compelling reason to consider, they would take part, but they would be happy enough if it was judged that the committee had outlived its usefulness.
I think it has outlived its usefulness. It should be disbanded.
And they talked about the things that they were doing, you know, they were having tours this summer and open houses, they're hoping to expand that. So they very much want to be a member of the community. I didn't want this to be taken either way, for what he was saying.
Yeah,
I
they're
got this out from the letter too.
I thought it was very nice. And they're very involved with the 350th. They just posted, you can sign up for tours with them.
So is there an official way then that they, because it's easy, everybody's really busy and stuff slides, is there an official way that they are gonna, a liaison or somebody or a meeting that they have with you, or just to communicate, touch base?
Well, we do touch base when something comes up, either on their end or my end. We talk on, especially with the water district. We worked with them a lot on the water district when that was being established. If other issues come up, they have forwarded us things. I have forwarded them things. So we communicate at pretty regular intervals when there's an issue or concern or just a need to say something. So from the town perspective, from my seat perspective, that exists now. I understand the committee was a different perspective.
Yeah, I think it was some of the citizens who really wanted to, but Heath described that folks were trying to get in landowners' business and it didn't end up following the collaboration that that it had been designed to. So.
Well, I think part of it, so I just want to acknowledge all the people that did participate in it, because I don't want them to feel that we didn't appreciate their participation. I think it was challenging with the Moody Center and their projects going through the planning board at the same time, or hitting the recorder, the newspapers before people really had a chance. And there wasn't that kind of collaboration. To your question, Sarah, about does somebody call in, right? In my experience, like with the water district, there was such great communication with Thomas Aquinas on Soulfest, for example, that totally took us by surprise. So I think that kind of set a different tone and a type of focus for the group that really wasn't the original intent. And people spent a lot of time talking about property transfers and property improvements and things like that. So it'd be kind of a laundry list of issues and questions, as opposed to real mutual discussion on things. The thing that I thought was most successful was and I mentioned this last time, what Robin was doing was really feeling that need to be neighborly and reach out socially as a group and draw people in. And I think that's been effective because they have felt really comfortable. The college, now I'm talking about the college is now like happy to participate in the 350th events. And they were just on a panel over at NMH too. So I just see they're two different entities and they bring different strengths, and I think that was kind of challenging for diplomatically put, I think it was challenging for the group to circle around two very different organizations who shared the same part of the street.
Yeah,
But I agree. I don't think, I think we should just work on developing our relationship with the college, and the Moody Center will do what they're going to do, and some of it will involve the planning board probably. which is out of our purview. So we just need to stay abreast, like we did with Soulfest. We ended up staying really abreast of that and being quite forceful, because I remember my conversation with them about it. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a use for the C5 at the moment. I kind of agree with what I'm reading there is he doesn't. Maybe at some point we have a liaison if, depending, Andrea has a lot on her plate. Maybe we appoint a liaison, somebody from the board or a citizen to communicate with them once in a while, say how's it going, I think they're open to communication. I don't think they want a dozen people calling them all the time, but if we had somebody that we appointed a liaison at some point, it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
That I think they'd be really receptive to that.
I think it should be one of those things that we keep an eye out for and see.
Yeah.
I know I'm just thinking, like, when I've been sitting in the office working on the agenda and Steve Wiggins comes by and they call in. So I've seen good communication. That wasn't the issue, was communication with the college so much as the communication with the Moody Center. Yeah, but I think it's worth keeping in mind. I don't feel the need for either a committee or liaison at this point, given how forward they've been, despite having a really particular college focus, but they've been very forward with the 350th and inviting people back in now that they've been there for 4 years.
I have to say COVID didn't help.
Yeah, that's true too. I keep forgetting about
we
that.
had 2 years of COVID in the middle, which
You're
I think
right.
shut everybody down more than
Well, and
anyone
that
else.
actually, it affected, it affected
And emerging
citizens'
from
concerns
that
too.
also,
Good point.
I mean, they had to contain their community for a very good reason during COVID.
And I think that the social aspect, the social liaison, I think is a really good idea that I'd like to kick the can down the road a little bit. But, Robin, who was just here, I think that she had to go, but she has established a really good relationship with them. She's the one that did the picnic. That was such and I think that especially when you're dealing with individual citizens, a structure and a little tiny bit of formality helps. I'm the liaison, I'm contacting you. And rather than, hey, I think that if she wants to continue to do those kind of things, and I know she does, it won't stop her to not be official. But I'd like to consider just not super big, but just a little bit of formality. I know Alex likes a little formality. To make sure that she has kind of an entree into continuing that work that I actually think is pretty important.
okay. So just something to think about down the road then, right? Or-
Get her in here, and if we decide to move on it, bring her in and see if she wants to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and then we also have to reach back out to, we can't make assumptions about what Thomas Aquinas needs.
Right.
So I'll just point that out. Yeah.
So are we making a motion at some point to disband the C5? Is that happening right now?
Did you? Maybe, I'm not sure. What were the terms?
I
Appointment
don't remember.
terms? Is it they expired?
my head, I don't remember.
So you should probably be safest to make a motion.
Okay.
Because I know, at least Heath's term, because you didn't reappoint a selectman, but I'm not sure what the terms were for each individual.
You have final minutes though that you've got to do, don't you? Don't those have to be
They can be
approved by
filed.
the?
Even
Okay.
if they're not, they can be filed.
Okay.
I don't think you need to have a committee as long as something's filed.
Would you like to make a motion, Heath?
No. I'll make a motion to disband the C5 committee until further immediately until further notice.
Someone want to second that? Or?
Second, with many thanks to the participants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion on that. Sounds good. Good motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of the C5 committee.
I'm just going to remind everyone that tours, you can sign up for tours with the college on the 350th website.
Special event policy identification, hold harmless language addition.
Yeah, it just came to my attention in reviewing and looking at some other people's and talking to people that we do have the insurance requirement, but we really should have an indemnification agreement, which I can put right on the same page as the insurance. So I'm not changing anything else in the policy.
Is your mic attached?
Oh, did it lose it?
Somebody
Oh,
just
it
sent me
fell
a
off.
text.
Oh, it fell off.
Thank you, Mark.
It fell off. Sorry, I must have lost it during reading. I don't know why it fell.
Otis was reminding me too. He's like, your thing.
So yeah,
flipped."
this is just simply an addition to the policy that's legal protection, and it's been advised to us to add it. It's not, doesn't change anything else in the policy or the process or the application itself. So, just want the select board's approval to add it to the application.
Okay, I move that we add the hold harmless indemnification agreement language be added to the special event policy.
Second.
Discussion. No? Further all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Does that also need to, do we need to do that with the seasonal too, or is it, it's in the seasonal? We just did special event, is that?
Well, we don't, generally the seasonal permit is everything happening on their property.
Oh, right,
The
right,
reason you have
okay.
a special event is because
Never
it's
mind.
impacting the
Never
town.
mind.
That's
Sorry,
right.
never mind. Thank
That's
you.
right.
So it's
Okay,
a slightly different purpose.
never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Just checking.
School resource officer update. I'll head the discussion on this because I took the meeting with Pat. So here's the here's what's going on. So the school resource officer position is apparently in the hands of the curriculum and personnel subcommittee that meets once a month, if that. The chair of this committee is Nathan Schwartz.
Yeah, from
And-
Warwick.
From Warwick.
Yeah.
And curriculum and personnel chair is fully aware that this is what they are supposed to be doing. What I'm having a problem with is why this specific task is being assigned to a curriculum and personnel subcommittee when it directly involves the superintendent and the police chief. Better yet, the school committee. So what I'm seeing here, and this is no fault to Patricia Kinsella, who I think is just caught in the middle of it at the moment, my interpretation of it, that the can is being kicked down the road. It's being kicked down the road. So we're seeing, I made it very clear on the phone to Pat that we have an MOU in place, we have money in place, we have an officer in place, we have a chief who's in supportive of this program in place, and I don't understand what the problem is. And I think the problem is that we have a school committee that is perhaps not in favor of it. And I'm only saying this because this has been something that I've reached out to Rena on through her email and have gotten no response from. I took the meeting with Pat, and she doesn't really have an opinion on it one way or another. But I think, and from her perspective, she is an individual who answers to the school committee, thus doesn't want to do something without their permission, I guess.
She said that we've talked about this at different points over the year, both publicly and offline. Her statement is usually that she works at the direction of the school committee,
Yes.
which is true, just like the town administrator works at the direction of the select board. We sent over the updated MOU, and that's why it was going, that they chose that particular committee because that committee does a lot of policy.
They only meet once a month, though. And
Right,
the chair
and
doesn't
they
have
are
any
now, yeah, I'm just explaining.
And Warwick's
So-
leaving.
And Warwick's leaving. So if you look, and I looked just before I came in, and our public display down there has the school district committee meetings posted and the physical location downstairs. So the next curriculum meeting, they will be selecting a new chair because Nathan and his counterparts will now be off of the school committee. So it kind of, it's going to have to restart with Raina, the chair, and the whoever the new chair is of the subcommittee.
1 year. They had 1 year. That is
No, it's
1
longer
year.
than 1 year.
Longer than a year.
Because Heath was chair and then I took it over, and now you're taking it over.
And-
So we're now on to the third chair
Right, and
of our board.
when we had an individual threaten the school system, there was a detail officer being paid $2,000 a week to sit in the cruiser or be posted at the school. And I don't think the town paid for that. I think that came out of the school budget, that detail money. Who paid for that?
They did,
Whoever did.
the district.
Look at the economies of scale. Let's pay $2,000 a week for an individual in a security detail, not in an SRO position, that type of money. Or we could have somebody in the school as an SRO doing the same exact thing and doing all the lovely, nice things that an SRO does for a school system. So I don't really understand what the problem is, why they would like somebody in that capacity spending more money, but not in the capacity that saves money and does the exact same thing. Seems to be a little bit of a problem to me. So what I would like to advocate is we, with the permission of the board, write a letter, a nice letter stating our position, which I'm hoping is somewhat unanimous over the safety of our students, and to increase law enforcement appreciation in the public school system. And send this letter to the school committee
Read it in front of them in a meeting.
or read it in front of them in a meeting
I'll be
that I
happy
will
to do that.
gladly advocate to be at and read said letter due to my passions of the situation and Heath's. So we can just get moving here because we have another school year in the books and nothing has happened, which is a terrible, terrible image for the school committee to have.
Especially after what happened this year.
Especially after what happened.
Made an arrest for a threat to commit a crime, murder against the principal.
May I? I think one of the things that when the chief came and spoke about the SRO, one of the things that I hadn't realized was the SRO's job was protection of the students in a different way. So the worst case scenario is that somebody against the school. But also the SRO's position in the school is to get to know the students and to help them to know if there's something wrong and to be able to intervene and keep them from going into the system, which would end in them as adults being in jail by intervening early. And so he's really doing a service to our community and a service to those students and the families. I had a citizen say to me, "Well, but if there's an SRO, then crime goes up." And I spoke to the police chief about that, and he said that the reason that appears like that is because then disciplinary things get sent to the SRO and it's written down as that. But that in our, that's in big metropolitan areas. That in our small town, the reason for the SRO is not just momentary protection with a gun. It's also protection on a more social and lifetime basis, actually, for those kids.
Preventative.
Preventative.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe per our agreement, it is not the SRO's job to enforce discipline in the school.
No.
Period. That is the school administration's job. It is, in fact, not the SRO's job to be involved in those types of
Backpack
issues.
searches and things
No.
like that.
It's
There
not
was
their
a
job.
there was a clear distinction.
Very clear.
Because otherwise it also muddies the SRO from being able to do preventative stuff, because now they're viewed as the person who goes through your locker. Exactly.
There's very strict stipulations on search and seizure and stuff like that too, because the school system in itself has a lesser burden of probable cause and reasonable suspicion to search a kid in their bag. If they get an SRO involved, it's the burden of legal standards that they would if they were on a car stop on the highway. It's like the same exact stuff. So there's a lot of stipulations in there. But I just want to make a comment on this ridiculous thing that I hear people, I've heard this throughout almost 20 years of law enforcement, where if there were no cops, crime rates would go down. Recordable crime rates would likely go down because you have no law enforcement entity to record statistics. You have no one to report it. You CRA, the FBI, and everything else. So you have no cops. Your reportable crimes would likely go down because no one's there to report it. Would your actual crimes in the community go up or down? Guaranteed they're going to go up. There's a lawless community. I mean, why do we have laws at all in the first place and people to enforce them? It's necessary in our society. So when people make these comments of like, oh, you put an SRO in the school and crime's going to go up. No. Hopefully crime goes down. Will statistical reporting go up? Maybe, because things are going to end up getting reported and detected and referred to the SRO more than there would be if there was zero SRO. But that's not the point. And people who assert things that they don't know about, and then they put them in forums and talk about it in the community when they're really not educated about what an SRO actually does and the necessity of having one. They're not just there as an armed guard to stand in front of the school, even though desperately it was needed in this particular situation. But this person would have served a great asset in that incident because they are the face that all of these kids and faculty are used to seeing. In a very scary incident, that can help save a lot of stress and anxiety for a lot of people. They just have a random police officer showing up and they're dealing with an incident. Yes, it's great to see somebody there who's there protecting the school, but if it's their person that they see all the time, they're going to have a much more sense of community and safety, that this person's there doing safety drills with them all the time. They're there. The police, the kids recognize them and everything. Like
who's trained.
Who's trained specifically in
for
how
that
to protect
role.
Exactly.
And because one of the trainings for the officer who's interested in it was on adolescent mental health. He did that in, I think the police chief mentioned that at his update. So I just want to emphasize that he's trained, as you've indicated and you very well know, he's trained, or she, if it was a she, but there is specific training that they go through and continue to go through to stay abreast of development as it relates to adolescence.
And I'll say this, if you are in charge of an institution and you have the ability to do something to make that institution safer, and you make a conscious decision not to take those actions, you are then complicit if something happens. So I'm going to publicly state this right now, that if that school committee delays this process any further and something happens to those kids, my kids in that school, if it happens to any one of those people, that an SRO position could have been there and prevented something bad from happening, they are fully complicit and liable for what happens. They need to take action and get this moving as fast as possible. And if this was a priority, it would have already been done. It's obviously not a priority, and shame on them for not getting it done up until now. It should not have taken as long as it has, and it's absolutely ridiculous. They should be embarrassing themselves.
Well, the current, as I reminded this board and the school committee chair, the current MOU expires at the end of June, the current one. So that's why we're putting forth an updated one.
The law is Chapter 71, Section 37P. That is the law that gives police chiefs and superintendents the power to craft an MOU and create this position. This law is a very well-written law, and in MGL, the more well-written a law is, the more legislators have had an opinion on crafting said law and having it created. Therefore, I do believe that Massachusetts has a very popular opinion over a school resource officer program in their school system, especially in our day and age that we live in. So, yeah, I'd like to see a letter. I'd like to, if we're all okay with that, have a letter written, and myself will read that letter in front of the school committee during, I guess, their public comment period, unless I can get on their agenda, which I highly doubt.
Make that request.
You can make the request.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, their next subcommittee meeting is...
I don't want to deal with the subcommittee.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's coming up too, so...
So hopefully maybe they'll make some progress in that.
Yeah.
And it'll actually get discussed.
Yeah.
Those folks will be at the school committee as well.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for entertaining my thoughts.
Are you going
that.
to craft the letter and then present it at the next?
Would you like me to
select
get a
board
draft to you?
Yes.
And then
Okay.
he
And
can
I will work with you
right,
on finalizing.
making notes on the
Okay,
so
good.
we can I'll draft it and then I'll send it to you.
You
You can
heard how I felt about this.
yes.
And Heath and other members.
And Sarah.
Plus, you have all my emails that I sent over there.
And response
over
from
the
them.
year. Feel free to cut and paste.
So yeah, and Sarah's
Let me know if I
comments,
can
so
help craft.
I think those are important.
I'm proud
Edit.
of Northfield PD.
I think
and
it's
I'm proud
I think it's
of the progress.
relevant because people think it's only the somebody standing out in front with a gun,
Right,
and that
external
deeper,
safety.
that
Yeah.
bigger part,
We need to,
was something I hadn't realized until I spoke to the chief about it.
yeah, we need to keep that in front of
The
people.
fact that I left in 2018 and I'm the last full-time person to hold that position is kind of sad.
All right. Well, we will now move on to ARPA approvals for the storefront improvement grant for Stellar Kayaks and the COVID premium pay.
Yes. So the interesting thing, starting with the storefront, the interesting thing is, I listened to Andrea at this rural policy meeting that we were talking about, and she used this business as an example when when the larger group was talking about economic development, that when you put together programs, sometimes you uncover businesses that you hadn't really thought about or aren't your typical, like the flower store or the mini mart, right? And these folks are on Main Street. They're right next to the Centennial House. And they are like one of the premier kayak manufacturers in the country. So, and we've met him before because he comes for a special event permit when they do the triathlon, the river triathlon. So what they're looking to do is to improve the garage that they use and where they see customers and retailers. And the committee is recommending this. And then we also had Mallory, the grant development director, talk to them about signage, because one of the goals is to have signage indicating, that business lives here in Northfield, right? And they already have that as part of their plans, so they don't need it as part of the grant. They're already putting together a sign that will make their location more visible.
I did put a copy, I think, on each of your desks. It's not in your packet. I added it separately after the other one that you're going to get.
Pictures?
There's a picture. I think it's one more down, Heath. I think you're looking at the ARPA peg.
Yeah. So, and
this
this is based out of their home.
You get this
too,
picture?
so.
I thought I put this on everybody's desk. Didn't I put it
You
on?
want to pass it around?
Yeah, I'll pass it around. Pretty sure I took pictures.
Do we have
of it.
any guidelines about signage?
Oh
in
yeah,
town?
there's this.
Is
You
it-
have to
is
look
it
at the zoning
bylaw?
bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah, there are bylaws.
So they
Really
I just wanted to
specific,
pass it around so people could get a look at, just so you know
But-
what you're looking for improvement on.
But as a dovetail to that, we're
For this
very
specific.
interested potentially.
Overhead doors.
So consider this for the Economic Development Committee.
I'm
is
wondering if it's in here.
signage that would indicate
Here it is.
that somehow brands, similar to what
Yeah.
Shelburne Falls does, and brands a consistent, either an add-on sign or something that makes it clear that there's some sort of common thread among the businesses in Northfield. So as we get further into the ARPA discussion, we're going to talk about the remaining funds and what those might be used for. So, Sarah, I will continue to stay in touch. I can't join another committee this summer, but these are all the same.
That was the picture.
Oh, they were all stapled together. Sorry. Okay. So the recommendation,
I don't think they're stapled. There should be individual.
no, they were, but
Oh,
I think that's what happened.
They were for to add to their.
So,
Okay.
did everyone? Okay. So the recommendation is to approve this storefront grant.
11,584.69. Is that the number I'm reading?
That's the grant. The total project is
12,871, but yes, the grant is 11,005.
because they have to match.
Oh.
Each person has a matching component.
Right. We don't
So-
fund 100%.
Oh,
Right.
Well, it
So-
seems like a
I'll,
good usage of the money.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the ARPA storefront improvement grant for Stella Kayaks in the amount of $11,584.69.
Second.
Second from Sarah, and a motion from Bernie. Discussion on that at this point. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Great.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the storefront improvement for Stellar Kayaks. That's great. Stellar.
It's a stellar request. There we go. Okay, and then the second one, this has been a long time in the making. And I have to thank a few people. One is the committee, because we did quite a few iterations on this proposal, and we didn't have a lot of models to go on. Very few towns in the Commonwealth are doing this. And I also have to thank Mark Fortier for the original idea, and also thank Chief Hall for some of his suggestions regarding total number of hours worked. So
And I just have to put in here, because she's not going to say it, working on a fair and equitable system, this took a lot of time and effort. We know it was a select board priority. It had been brought to the board, mostly on B's part. You did the yeoman's work on this, and it was many iterations and consulting many people over and over again. So don't sell yourself short. That's all I want to say.
Lots of spreadsheets. I'm
Lots
just
of
going to say
spreadsheets.
that. So what it has resulted in is the one pager in front of you, and then if you look at the handout as opposed to, because the ARPA committee just met last night, so the latest and greatest is, where is it, Andrea? Did you?
It's they should have a 3-page attachment that.
Oh, right. Okay.
With all the updated stuff.
Right. Okay, so it's dated Monday, June 12th. Just make sure you're looking at the right one.
Yeah.
So as we went through this, it started off a little bit overly complicated and hard to explain. But the committee, because they had looked at it so many times, were pretty clear on it, but I just didn't feel it was presentable. So what we did was we simplified it. I stopped focusing on employee departments, because what I was finding, not all employees in departments fulfilled the same criteria. So for example, we have a number of people who do custodial work, and during the COVID timeframe had to do a lot of extra cleaning. And they might fall under an administrative budget, they might fall under the senior center, and they might fall under the library. So the original approach was department-based, and if I did it based on the department, some of those folks who actually did shoulder the burden of extra cleaning and just extra responsibility
Extra potential exposure.
Exposure would not really have received the amounts that are that I figured out in this approach. So the way that we did that was, number 2, we added a multiplier for whether or not biological material was handled, and we added that multiplier on top of the number of hours that they worked. So the result of this proposal, and why I feel really good about bringing this forward, both to the committee and the select board, is we actually resulted in lower total dollars and better distribution of funds across employees, especially part-time employees at the lower wage scales. So we didn't focus on the dollar amount per hour, we focused on the total number of hours worked. So the employee criteria is fairly simple. It covers the time frame of March 12th, 2020 through April 8th, 2021. They still have to be actively employed with the town as of the end of this month. The duties were performed as an employee. Some of our employees are also elected officials, so I just want to make it clear, no hours of an elected official count. It also excludes employees who were the ARPA committee members, so the town administrator, the town clerk, and the treasurer, although the town clerk was serving as a member of the finance committee. But we just want to be clear that nobody on the ARPA committee is actually benefiting from this. And then the implementation is fairly straightforward. As somebody pointed out yesterday, it's kind of like a if-then-else statement if you've ever done programming. So using the employee's duties, not their department, if the majority of duties involved contact with biological material, there's a 1.5 multiplier for custodial cleaning, handling and dispensing food, and or handling trash, compost, and or human waste. And then there is a 3.0 multiplier for sustained, prolonged, close quarter contact with biological material and or infected or sick people. Does that make sense so far? I know you guys have all read it, but I'm just moving through it so that it's clear from a public standpoint. the maximum amount, regardless of multiplier, is 3,000. The minimum amount is 50. So we did want to recognize everyone's efforts in this. If the majority of duties did not involve contact with biological material, so for example, they could sit behind a plexiglass, then a hired full-time employee receives 500, a hired part-time employee receives 250, an occasional worker like the election workers will receive 50. So we wanted to recognize even folks who just put in a few hours over the course of many months. In conclusion, ARPA funds of $62,000 were reserved. The request for tonight is
$46,886.
just shy of $47,000. And a total of 91 employees are being touched with this. The awards range from $50 to $3,000. The average is $515.
Who got the highest award?
Well, we're not doing it by name, but you can look at the categories.
And I've included a spreadsheet that shows the distribution.
The full-time sewer.
Yeah.
Some of the police.
They go across various
Yeah,
departments.
different departments. Yeah,
are you
depends
look-
on the hours.
And their exposure and potential.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
You have
happy
a
to
handout
explain it if you're looking
that
at it.
had the
And as I mentioned, Northfield is one of the few towns in Massachusetts to do this. Most towns didn't want to do this because it was too complicated. And some towns did it just solely for first responders.
Well, thank you for going to the extra effort I know that took. That was a lot of work.
You. It actually, I just feel like I'm gonna not cry, but it's just like, okay, this took at least 6 iterations with the committee, so I appreciate their patience. The town clerk is serving on the ARPA committee as a FinCom member, and the treasurer has the list and will verify employee status again, since we've been working on this for so long, before distributing dollars this month. So the goal is to distribute them in the next pay period, which do you think she's able to do?
That's what we're going to try to do.
That's
If we
the
give it to
goal.
them now, then they have 2 weeks so that they're not entering it the same day they're entering everybody's pay sheets. It'll allow them to open that up and start
Right, so then.
after the current payroll.
Do we need a motion or?
Yes, we do to approve it. It's
Okay.
definitely an.
I'll make a motion to approve ARPA funds for the COVID premium pay in the amount of $46,872.25.
Who's got to sign it?
Second.
Second, thank you.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Where's Heath? Oh,
Those are his steps. I'll give it 10 seconds.
you're going to need, if it's approved, that's for you. Step by step,
See if it is.
inch by inch.
We made a motion, Heath, for the approval of ARPA funds for the first responders.
For COVID premium pay.
COVID premium pay.
In the amount of 46,000.
Aye.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Okay,
And I
thank
just
you.
need you to check and sign that.
That's for you to sign. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
I also attached, just so you would know, to that packet, I think, or I put it on your desk somewhere, the updated ARPA funds, so that you can see where we're at. And this 61 was the unspent balance before your current vote. So right now, there's $14,302 approximately in unexpended funds that have either been returned or have not been appropriated. So, and I'm working with several of the committees, departments now to make sure that I'm back checking on all of their expenditures, and some of them are resulting in things coming back. So we're going to try to accumulate that up, and then we'll see what we have left as a balance and move forward with potential other
Yeah.
appropriations.
And I just want to say another plug for the ARPA committee is there are towns, and I know the time is ticking, but it needs to be said, there are other towns out there that are desperately working to spend their funds. We've been doing this for over a year, and the goal was to touch as many different areas as possible. And I think we've accomplished that, and we're not in a race for the finish. because we've actually allocated most of the funds.
Right, it's supposed to all be allocated by December this year.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all spent, but it must all be allocated. So
But we're also working on making sure it's spent.
yeah, well, as much as possible. I don't want
Right.
some of these things to sit around forever. If people need certain things,
No,
then they
and
should spend them. But
if they're
sometimes
not,
they've
then
sometimes they've completed a project and it didn't come to exactly what they thought it was. I just want to recapture that money and put it back in the,
In the
rather than
pool.
let it sit.
Yeah. All right, so we're still on it, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Vote end of the year transfers, typical town business done before the end of the fiscal year.
Right, so anything that is voted outside of the categories that you had on your town meeting warrant under general government, these were the categories. So if, for example, legal is on here, where are you, town legal expense? We don't have one here yet, but I think you're going to see one, has a set amount that's voted at town meeting. So if it was going to exceed that, then I have to do a transfer request, or the department has to do a transfer request from another department's balance. So we're trying to keep it all from within the same appropriation. So if somebody has a little left and somebody went a little over, we can move it. Now, if it's internal to a department, for example, select board expense, the amount is $22,300 for fiscal '23. If one of the line items in there, and there are several within, goes over, it doesn't matter. We don't have to do this. It's the bottom line, $22,300. So you might go over a few dollars on the copier, but you're a few dollars under on the phone. We don't have to go through this process. It's the bottom line as voted at town meeting, just so everybody understands.
Yep.
And that's why these are being moved between accounts that are bottom line going on or over.
And these are not excessive
by law.
amounts.
The
Yeah.
finance committee reviews them and the select board reviews them. So this process, and then we turn them into the accountant, who then can transfer the funds. So at the end of the year, you have to be balanced on all
So
these
I would
accounts.
I would just recommend, just so in the interest of time, so we can get through
Yep.
these quick, when somebody does the motion, just say where it's transferred from, where it's going to, and what the amount is. And in further discussion, if necessary, we can explain the transfer and approve it and move on.
Right, if you
Got
have questions, we'll do
Got
it
it.
from that.
And you need a motion for each individual.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So I move that we transfer $1,451.95 from Town Hall Capital Projects account 011.
You don't have to read
Oh,
the
I don't?
account number, no.
From to Streetlights account.
Second.
Second discussion on this?
Nope.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we transfer $417 from the Selectmen account to Town Reports. This is for the special town meeting handout material copy costs.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we transfer $1,874 from computer supply and services to accountant salary. This is for the last payment for accounting services for June, and so that we do not take the account into negative numbers.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I move that we transfer, this is a little bit bigger, $40,000 from highway regular wages to snow removal wages. And just a note that this is the first year we split winter versus regular wages, so depending on what's needed, we need to make the transfer into, obviously, more snow removal.
Second.
Discussion? Yeah, big number here. Pretty much what B just said. We'll have to.
This came up in rural policy
It-
discussion, by the way,
It happens
too.
quite often,
Yeah.
and I like to move it from wages within wages. Sometimes you do a little less in the summer, you don't have as many things, and then winter is always unpredictable.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
but
then
as long as
have
we
an-
have it in the wage accounts, then I think we're.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we transfer $738.92 from Town Hall building maintenance to elementary school maintenance. This is, this is just finishing up a few flooring and repair projects at the elementary school that went slightly over the $15,000 appropriated for this year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we transfer $109 from the Veterans Memorial Committee account to the Memorial Day supplies account. This is for increased flower costs this year than last year.
Second.
Discussion? Vote? All in favor?
Aye. I move that we transfer $15,000 from highway, bridge and rails to machine maintenance and repair. This is for the unforeseen expenses with trucks and equipment this year in highway.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we transfer $800 from registration census account to assistant town clerk account because additional voting hours resulted in extra time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well done, B.
Thank you. Following in your big shoes.
Don't leave
I was
it.
waiting for it.
Don't leave without signing them all, Alex.
Alex has to sign them?
He has to sign every
Okay.
one of them.
Signing of the Regional Energy Planning Assistance Grant MOU with the FERCog for technical assistance.
You've done this in previous years.
Yes,
They
we
offer
have.
technical assistance for a very complicated piece that has to be supplied each year for that. Also, for this year, they are going to assist not only with the annual report preparation, but with the grant application, presentation of your annual report to a municipal board. So we might see them, we could ask them to come in. They got some grant funds to do that. And developing zero net emissions plans for municipal buildings and operations, including establishing a greenhouse gas emissions baseline. So that's funding that they've now received for that we hadn't had in the past. So I'm going to take on some more things with this technical assistance.
So this is
grant.
authorizing us to get more out of the FERCog.
Yeah, they got some
Okay.
additional assistance, and so they're offering, they're expanding the technical assistance grant MOUs this year as a result.
Okay. It's the standard MOU.
Do you need a motion?
Yep.
Make a motion that we sign the Regional Energy Planning Assistance Grant, MOU, with FERCog for technical assistance.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Well, it looks like we all have to sign that one.
Yep.
I think so.
Letter of support for the Small Bridge Program application.
Applying for a small bridge grant for the School Street Bridge, and the select board usually submits a letter of support. I think he's got one in there.
I move that we sign the letter of support for the Small Bridge Program application.
Second.
Discussion on that? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here's the letter.
Nothing like having a stack of papers.
And there's a FERCog one too?
I didn't see it.
Where's the FERC?
So-
Is it
Oh.
in there?
Is the FERCog MOU in there?
Yeah, I'll sign that one anyway.
Did we not print a signature one? Thought we did. We'll get you one before the meeting's over.
Okay.
We have to print it off again, but
Okay.
I thought there was one in one of the folders.
And I got it in our homework thing.
Yeah, but usually we then print one out and put it into the to be signed folder, so we'll find it.
So
Yeah, we all need
we
to
have a
sign.
time off request for an individual in town.
I move that we approve the time off request.
I'll second that. Sure. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to sign that.
Yep. I
Yes.
think it's in your,
It's in this folder right
It's in
here.
the folder, I think.
oh,
It's in this.
Okay. Just give me 1 second here. and
Yep.
I'll move on
And just so
to
you notice, usually we do put executive sessions at the end of the meeting. However, there's a topic on the possible warrant that you're going to sign that you need to discuss and agree to in
Oh,
executive
God.
session first. So we had to do the executive session and then come back out
Oh,
and
so we do
vote
need
to
to come
decide
back
to
out.
sign the warrant.
okay.
to return to open session.
Yes, for one reason.
Okay. Okay.
Do we want to do all the details before then, though? The topics and the committee board and the proposed agenda items, all those kind
We
of
don't
things?
really.
Oh,
I
yeah,
suppose
you
we
can-
could
you
just.
can do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Get them done.
topics previously not anticipated by the chair, 48 hours. Didn't come to anything. I don't think we had anything, so that's all set. Committee and board appointments, there are none.
Well, we
don't
already
have
took care of
anybody
them.
to appoint. There's no committees. All right. Proposed agenda items.
I have one.
Okay.
We had a citizen comment last meeting that the Zoom meetings, the hybrid meetings, were really hard to hear. So online, people weren't able to hear them. And I don't know if it's technically breaking the open meeting law, because it was open for people to come in, but people weren't able to hear it. And so I wanted to put on the agenda, or request to put on the agenda, I know we have a tech grant or something like that, if we could find a solution for that. The issue was that when people listened to the recordings, they could hear the Zoom, the people that were on Zoom, but the people in the room they couldn't hear, I guess because they were using the computer to do the thing. So I would just like to put that on the agenda.
Is that
to
a
consider
select board
that.
meeting or a different kind of meeting?
No, not select board meeting. It was
then
some
they
of
weren't
the,
using the central.
I think
mic.
it was the
Yeah, they
building
were.
committee.
and also the e-services committee.
Yeah, yeah.
And they
They
went
need
and
to
listened
use-
to them
They
online.
need to use the central mic. We have an external mic.
Oh, okay. So-
That would solve that problem. for them.
Okay,
Okay.
Zoom
We
infrastructure.
could try at least to solve that problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We have a central mic that they can place in
Okay.
the middle.
Anything else? We've got our master list here of
Um,
topics.
I just want to mention the nursing grant with FERCog should be coming back from the Board of Health. Just
Okay.
for your, I think they talked about it.
They thought it was free.
Yeah, there was a confusion.
That all got settled, and they talked about
Yeah.
it this past week, so
confusing.
everyone's all up to speed on it. So it needs to come back, and we're going to have to sign it, but I just want to make sure, because I think it was of a concern for the senior center. There's no issue with the contract because it automatically renewed, but it does need to come back for the full renewal, so just make a note.
Okay. Announcements? No announcements? Any shout outs for recognition of service?
Yeah, shout out to the to Patter and company for the
They did an amazing amount of work.
Oh,
for the
yeah.
barbecue, and of course the 350th for a really beyond successful weekend. It just keeps, it's like a big snowball. It just keeps rolling. So, and I also wanted to give a shout out to the Tree 50th, Judy Wagner and Pam Eldridge included in that, because I did see them rolling the trees. Literally with their wheelbarrows.
And to the highway department, I believe the highway department dug those holes.
Oh,
great.
okay. So thanks to the highway department. Shout
Thank
out.
you, Highway.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a shout out. Shout out to Sergeant Poroskoff. Last night there was an individual stranded on the side of the road
Ooh.
with a broken headlight, and he gave the individual a ride home. It was a much older antique vehicle. So I thought that was really cool, helping out a good car enthusiast. So good job to Sergeant Poroskoff. So very good.
Is this somebody who's going to be in the parade?
Maybe.
Did you recruit them?
Maybe not.
Yeah, not if it's not working. Okay,
All right.
we ready to roll?
Yeah, for the executive session. Am I going to read that? Yeah,
Why
I'll
don't you
read
read it and I'll do a so moved.
Okay. Executive session for emergency services facility real estate options under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and I believe it does. So.
And to return.
And to
Dan
return.
to return to open session for a special town meeting warrant potential.
So moved.
Second.
Second on that, and we'll have a roll call vote.
B, yes.
Alex, yes.
Bernie, yes. Heath, yes.
Sarah, yes.
All right.
Okie doke.
So we're coming back.
When the internet goes out.
And these are ones.
Everybody put your microphone back on, please.
Special meeting town warrant as a result of our executive session. So,
Just have to vote whether or not to recommend each one of these. If you want to do it as a vote, and then if you have any questions, open it during discussion and move it faster. And then you can vote yes or no.
Why aren't we putting money values at Article 1 and Article 2?
We never do on
Never?
the posted warrant.
Okay,
We put it on the motion warrant.
got it.
Because sometimes it does change, especially since the finance committee hasn't made their recommendation. Sometimes they'll say something and then you'll end up changing it on town meeting floor. If you put it in the posted warrant, it becomes a whole process about whether or not you can even have that vote sometimes, but you're not required to do it. For example, if you put 100,000 on something and then you decide, everybody says, no, let's do 200, absolutely not. That can't pass at town meeting because it's not,
Got it.
it would be non-informed to someone who said, well, 100 was fine to me, but I didn't come, but now you're 200 and I would have come and voted no.
Right.
So the scope of the article becomes a major issue.
Oh, got it.
But I'll prepare the motion warrant, we make that available.
Well, and then we each read a motion. Yeah.
Yes. So it's up to you guys to make our motions on whether or not you support each article, and then you can discuss them, and then you can vote in yes or no.
looks fine to me.
Oh, Article 4, but, okay. Article 6. Okay. Oh, so on Article 6, then we do have to put in the specific properties.
Yes,
Okay.
I gave you a sheet that lists the 21 that the town has, but there's only 10 in that article because there's only 10 we feel are clear enough at this time. We'll
Okay.
move more to you as we go along.
Right. Okay, this looks good to me.
These properties, we own them, or?
You got a sheet.
Yeah.
Yep, it says the status that we know of right now. And so what we're clear on, we're going to move to get rid of, and we're trying to clear up more.
Okay, these aren't things that somebody owns and they own us a lien and
You
they
can't
get-
sell a liened property. We have the
Okay.
deed.
Okay, well, we don't have to give them anything. We sell it, we get it.
Well, that's a Supreme Court decision that just happened, so that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, so
Whether
we
you
might
can-
not get all the money from these properties, but we'll get at least.
We'll get
the
everything
lien.
owed to us, at
Okay, well,
least.
so that's what I
terms of-
wanted to be
In
clear
terms
on.
of fees, legal fees,
So is,
back taxes,
Okay.
yes.
is
So
the-
we're not gonna get the full value of
We
the
don't know.
property, but we don't know.
It's auctionable too. You may not get all of that,
Yeah, okay.
so,
So it is a lien on the properties then, so, okay.
yes.
Yep,
There is a lien, including your deed.
just wanted that clear.
Thank you. So the value is what we think it's valued at?
That's the assessed value
The assessed value, okay.
from the assessor's
So we might
office.
get less than that, but there are quite a few things on here that.
There are some things that also could be land of low value. I'll bring that discussion to you guys. Some of these
Yeah.
could be disposed of as land of low value. It's another process, but first process is it has to be taken from the treasurer and given to the select board, because you are the arbiters of all property buy and
Right.
sell
Okay.
or transfer.
So really, we need to do this in order to even begin the process, because we have to accept it from the treasurer.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm good with that.
Anyone want to make a motion on this?
Motion,
Do one by one.
Make a motion to accept Article 1 as written.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion to approve Article 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm against that one.
Oh,
Okay. Article 3?
motion to accept Article 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to accept Article 4.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
No, that's a
Aye.
trap.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Article 5 is on, move that we approve Article 5, bylaw and committee membership.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lastly, Article 6.
I move that we approve Article 6, which involves transferring property so that we can sell it.
Okay.
Second. Sorry.
Got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And your next meeting will be prior to the special, so then you can firm up everything you want for.
So just from an agenda standpoint, at the next meeting, if we could, I know we've got a lot on our plate, but maybe we'll put this up at the front so we can discuss it going into the...
We have to make sure people know
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so then we can walk through the details and we'll have the motions, right?
The only thing I would ask before you adjourn is, actually, if you could make a recommendation what you want for Article 2, as opposed to just recommending. I know about Article 1, the rest I understand, but you guys who voted certainly in favor of it really should give me a recommendation to put on the motion warrant. What are you recommending and asking the Finance Committee to consider?
Was this the 500K?
You know what my recommendation is, but that's neither here nor there for what you guys want to do. That's my recommendation, but it's really up to you guys to decide.
Well, I would move that, this is what we had talked about, right?
Correct.
Okay, then I would move that we, that Article 2 involve $500,000.
Do we think that's gonna be enough?
Well, to get started,
We're going to have to do another, we would have to do another town meeting potentially.
Well, I'm figuring you wouldn't be
Will
doing
this
anything
get
till
us through,
spring.
this will get us through the winter?
I
So that
think-
we can get the arrangements going?
Yes.
That's
that-
my
oh,
major
yes.
concern.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
oh, yes.
Okay, then
And
that's
probably
fine.
be some funding towards a construction.
Okay.
I
That's
just want
my-
to make sure we get the timing, and if there's
Correct.
anything that we need to do from a construction standpoint, we can line it up when in the winter when it's cheaper.
You made the motion for
500,000.
second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to
Abstain because I voted against the other one, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not putting that vote on, but I put on the recommend 4-1. That's
And then
what
the
that's-
finance committee will take that up.
Right,
Yeah.
they take it up at their meeting. They're going to meet the Monday before you do.
Okay, next, okay.
So
2 weeks.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Night.
And I know that Sarah spent some time looking at this
I'll
property.
get
So if
Paul.
anybody